that he's able to put Shintaro in a spot where he just doesn't find energies for the rest of the game. If he's just stuck putting 60 damage onto the board, maybe Fabio has an opening. But if there's an attack along with that, if he's able to raise relief as well, then I have to think that Shintaro's got this game locked up.
Yeah, and keep in mind, by the way, that we're down to sub 20 minutes remaining, and this is still game one. And this was kind of telling of how like this matchup can really play out. These decks don't deal too much damage, and when you don't have an explosive start, then you're just not going to be running your opponent over. So if that happens again in game two, then this very well just be a match that ends with the winner of game one taking the actual win overall here. And obviously that's not something Fabio's going to want to hear.
Yeah, the choice band might be pretty relevant, getting some extra damage onto the board here. It may mean that Tapu Bulu is able to come up and take a knockout or something along those lines, but you can just see it on Fabio's face. He knows that he's definitely in trouble if Shintaro is able to pull something out of that end hand.
And the worst part is that there was never really a spot where Fabio could just scoop, you know? Like, he was always just that much in the game where it was like,
right.
Well, there's no reason for me to scoop yet. I can still win. But he was so far, but he was definitely behind throughout this entire game. So it's not like you can really fault him for staying in this, even now. Well, especially now that there's only 17 and a half minutes remaining.
Yep.
Acerola one more time. We've seen it happen time and time again. Just the offense just mitigated over and over by Shintaro. And just look at that head shake. He's visibly frustrated, but at the same time, he's taking it as well as you possibly can. But you just know that that's just the worst thing you can see when you... The way to avoid this Acerola thing from happening to you, if you're Fabio, is to just get going much faster than your opponent. Once your opponent has this kind of a setup, Acerola is just going to destroy you.
Yeah.
But if you can do this before your opponent gets this setup, which is something that he hoped to do before this match began, then you avoid this kind of a situation from happening. So now that it's happening, there's just very little you can do about it. And you see how much damage Fabio's play area has compared to the only 40 damage in Shintaro's Decidueye here.
Yeah, Shintaro made a fantastic play. He used Feather Arrow before he Acerolla'd, which meant that he got 4 Feather Arrows off on this turn. That meant that the Tapu Lele on the bench is within range of 4 more Feather Arrows. So all he needs to have is an Acerola and to not be Hex Maniac, and he can close out the game. Oh, well, he also is going to need a Forest of Giant Plants now that was taken off the board. But he doesn't even need to have an attack, unless, of course, Fabio decides that Hex Maniac is going to get in here, which he does.
Those Versus Seekers paying dividends for both of these players. And now Fabio, I mean, Fabio's definitely playing it as well as you can. I think he's making some solid plays in order to get himself back into this situation, but it's just a very difficult spot for him to be in. And Shintaro just full court press here. Plays another Versus Seeker.
That's Guzma.
Guzma brings up the Tapu Lele. And that is going to be the end of game one here with 16 minutes remaining. Shintaro Ito takes game one in kind of a marathon game as Shintaro going up 1-0 against Fabio Spano. And, I mean, again, Shintaro plays world class, obviously being our world champion, and he just gave nothing away. Like, he got that kind of a setup that he hoped to get against Fabio's Lurantis deck, which isn't exactly a heavy hitter early on, but at least it wants to start attacking early in the game, get energy acceleration going. And in the meantime, Shintaro saw that he wasn't under any pressure, took full advantage of that, beaconed over and over again until his opponent finally knocked out that Vulpix, but by then it was too little too late, as triple Decidueye is just very difficult for any deck to overcome.
Yeah, we saw Shintaro was in complete control of that game. He was threatened, but of course that's the way that his deck works. He has Acerola, he's able to pick up all that damage, and he's able to win these long, grueling matches, which is what he wants to do. When you're playing 50 minutes plus 3, that means that if you can win games like these 35-minute games, you're going to be in a fantastic spot coming into game 2. You don't even need to win that game, you just need to not lose it, and you're going to go out with 3 match points.
Indeed. Now, with so little time remaining, you definitely want to see, I mean, this is obvious, but Fabio's going to want to get out of the gates running, right? He wants to just...
Max Elixir,
Max
just
Elixirs,
go.
Definitely force the Giant Plants, Flower Supply on, early in the game if possible. All these things have to go right for him. But that's just to earn himself a draw.
Yep. Let's see if he prized anything relevant over on his side there. He did start with a Sudowoodo, unfortunately for him, but looks like his prizes aren't too terrible.
A single Fomantis, you'll take that. Yep. And now 1 Dartrix and a Tapu Lele with a Drampa.
We're never going to see that Drampa, are we?
No, we really aren't.
And we are...
Tapu Lele being prized, by the way, is very relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. That can come into play.
Ultra Ball here for Fabio to kick things off in game 1. Remember, getting a Sudowoodo as your opening Pokemon is not ideal by any means. That's just about the worst starting Pokemon in his entire deck.
Yeah, it's a target for Guzma for just stalling. If Shintaro just wants to place Feather Arrows, it's pretty difficult to get out of the active spot unless you have a Float Stone, and you're never going to attack with it.
Yep, and right away, the Ultra Ball finds himself a Tapu Lele. The Tapu Lele finds himself an N, and both players get their hands shuffled into their decks, and they're going to be drawing 6 cards apiece.
Yeah, over on Shintaro's side, he was able to start his best Pokemon in that Tapu Lele, or Tapu Koko promo. It's got Free Retreat, it's got a lot of hit points, and it's able to just get you to wherever you need to be. As soon as you use that opening Bridget, you can either choose to be aggressive with one of your tech attackers, or you can go straight to that Vulpix and use the Beacon like we saw so often.
Kind of fitting that the World Championships that the very first round of this second and main day of the World Championships features all 3 Tapus in between both of these players' decks, between Tapu Lele, Tapu Koko, and Tapu Bulu.
If only we had Tapu Fini.
Well, right. I guess the Tapus that are relevant to the format.
Yeah. Sorry to all you water players out there.
Mr. Fini. All right, let's see. Ultra Ball, discarding a Max Elixir and a Hex Maniac. What's he going to find here? Looks like he finds another Fomantis. That's perfectly fine. You definitely don't want to get your Fomantis knocked out randomly.
Yeah. And we've seen it happen. Decks like this can be very explosive over on Shintaro's side. John Kettler has gotten many Decidueyes out when I've thought maybe 1 or 2 would be max, but these Pokemon can start to fall off the board pretty quickly.
And now a single card hand here for Fabio as he passes the turn. Obviously, you expect to see a supporter in that single card here for Fabio.
Shintaro's hand is amazing. He has just about everything you could ask for with level balls and a forest of giant plants. He's got a supporter for the turn in Sycamore. He's probably going to have one of those big turns that we start to expect out of the Decidueye decks here, and just not skipping a beat.
I mean, the Decidueye deck is kind of built for these big turns. Yes, it's difficult to pull it off, but your deck is meant to run kind of like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
So if your deck doesn't stumble early, then you should expect to see, like, say, triple Dartrix, or say a Decidueye and a Dartrix and a Rowlet. That kind of a setup is not uncommon whatsoever for these for this Decidueye deck. The main component, though, is that Forest of Giant Plants.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there he fans it to the front of the hand. He also agrees that it's the main component. And down it goes, Force of Giant Plants. What kind of damage can it deal now? Triple Rowlet right away, a Dartrix, and a Sycamore.
That's amazing. That's just great.
It really is.
We'll see if his hand continues to work this way, and it looks like I see
no.
a couple Ultra Balls, so that means Shaman could come into play if he wants to. He could use an Ultra Ball, get himself a Decidueye or a Dartrix, use another Ultra Ball, grabbing a Shaman, and he could get another 6 cards for himself. So if he wants to have a big turn, it's available for him.
Yeah, it looks like he disagrees, though. He's going to be Ultra Balling one of the Ultra Balls away.
Yeah, it looks like he's gonna go with the Alolan Vulpix. This plays perfectly into someone who just won a 35-minute game. If you want to play a nice slow-paced game, use Beacon and get yourself the regular setup of 240 hit points. You're not gonna knock me out this time around.
I love how this showcases just how good Alolan Vulpix is. I mean, Alolan Ninetales GX is an incredible Pokemon, and it may very well be playing second fiddle to its basic counterpart.
Right.
Alolan Vulpix is just incredible. Being able to beacon for no energy. See how the
protect this turn, not wanting to get knocked out. Celesteela as well. Barris more than happy to play down the turns to ensure that he keeps having the Pokemon advantage. Sehwan left doing nothing at all.
Yeah, very smart play from Barris. He's got the game all wrapped up, and again, Sehwan has potentially one more turn to take some knockouts, and he also has to take those knockouts without losing any Pokemon on his side of the field. So this is something that I think Barris really played to his win condition, probably having an information kind of, not advantage, but just a good awareness of the information in the game, knowing roughly where the timer was at for this game, knowing that this game wasn't going to be resolved by a complete set of knockouts. That was so essential. But the Tapu Koko on Sehwan's side does start with a Thunderball.
And it gets the knockout on the Arcanine, not falling short this time around. Celesteela with the heavy slam into Barris' Celesteela, possibly an assurance that the Arcanine would get knocked out no matter what happens, as Celesteela on Barris' side of the field uses its own heavy slam to knock out the opposing Tapu Koko.
Yes, and even though Barris drops a Pokemon, he does take another knockout. We do see Barris raising the fingers there, just confirming what turn we were on in this game. But interestingly enough, we have Celesteela versus Celesteela. So depending, of course, on what Barris brings and what Sehwan brings, could be very interesting here. I believe this is the last turn, or turn 2. So we one or two more turns remaining. We see Sehwan bring his Garchomp. We see, of course, the Tapu Koko come out from Barris, and I think that's the right decision here. That's going to be really important. So this is turn 2 of 3 is what I'm hearing over my headset, and that's so essential. Being able to deal big damage to the Celesteela is so important, of course, for this game. We do see, though, players not going to time, and the forfeit locked in from Sehwan, realizing he had no way out, making our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, that was so exciting, though. You know, the turn going down all the way to the wire, turn 2 of 3 in terms of the match resolution. No sudden death this time around, but it was so close.
It really was, and the play quality there. That game, because they bought identical 4 Pokemon, not quite the team selection, the quality of play was what decided that game. I think Sehwan had a really good strategy in Game 2, but it doesn't work when you're running out of time in Game 3, and it didn't quite work in Game 1 either. That was an absolute marathon of competitive Pokemon, and both players reverting to a team which around the middle of the season was so popular, that core of Tapu Koko, Arcanine, Garchomp, and Celesteela. Maybe the dominating team here in Day 2. Seeing it perform so well at the beginning, that's really important.
Definitely. You can see why they reverted to it. It's just a solid combination of Pokemon. There's many ways you can tweak it to fit your play style. We saw the Assault Vest on the Tapu Koko from Sehwan. We saw the Choice Scarf on the Garchomp from Barris. Just so many different ways you can run it and make it work. And just, it all comes down to your plays.
It really did. And I think both players looked to play their play style a little bit. We saw in Game 2 from Sehwan, very smart play, cycling Intimidates, getting Will-O-Wisps down, but he didn't get that at all in Game 3, and it was definitely losing the Arcanine was most important, because with the way the teams matched up, although they were the same 4, they had different items, and with the different items coming in there, the way they had to play it was different. Of course, we had the Assault Vest with the Tapu Koko on Sehwan's side, and we had the Choice Scarf on the Garchomp on Barris' side, and the way he dealt with the Choice Scarf in Game 2 was essential. Wasn't able to pull it off in Game 3, maybe because he was a little bit scared of falling behind in that race. It really became very essential that he stayed a step or 2 ahead.
Yes, but you have to wonder, I mean, we already had a match essentially go to time for round 1. We still have a few rounds of Swiss left to go. That is a huge mental tax to take right off the bat for both Sehwan and Barris.
Well, that's what I mean about these players really kind of feeling out their opponent, making sure they make the right plays. Nobody wants to give up in Game 1, and I think it's interesting, or round 1, I think it's interesting that Barris took Game 2 to a lot of time, maybe knowing he had a more offensive option that he could cut to, he could really go for. Yes, he went for the Z move again. Yes, he failed the Z move again. But his team was, I believe, a little more offensive. The Choice Scarf Garchomp, the quicker and more offensive Tapu Koko, really showing, I think, the difference in play style. And I've always been interested to see defensive players match up against offensive players. In this game, we had the perfect showcase of it. A Game 1 win for Barris, showing off how you can really up your ante a little bit, really bring the pace of the game forward. A long game 2 that we had showing how defensive play comes to the fore at the World Championships, and game 3 showing how both styles match up in a real kind of short, high-tempo game.
All right, well, let's talk to Barris ourselves and see what he has to say about that round 1 win. Anna, take it away.
Thanks, guys. I am backstage with Barris. Barris, at the end of that match, I don't know if I would say you looked happy, but how are you feeling?
Well, game 1, I was behind and I had to make a read, and like he did the better read, and I only came back after that crit, and I saw how upset he was. And I mean, it's Pokemon, but like I didn't want to beat him that way. Then second game, he got the double protect to come back and win the game. And third game, well, it was close. It went to timer. I was able to bring it home with the double protect in the end. But like close games, Miro, I didn't feel too good about my plays. Like I think I made a bunch of mistakes. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I'm 1-0, quite excited to win my first round and looking forward for the next rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. You're already here in day 2. Tell us a little bit about how you got here. 2 worlds to begin with, and then how yesterday went for you.
I mean, we met in Indy, right? And I was qualified for day 2 because I was high ranked in Europe. So I didn't have to play yesterday. So I could like relax and watch what my concurrence is doing. Yeah, I wasn't too stressed about my team because I was like, okay, I'm just using standard stuff and like trying to play better than my opponent. Let's see how that works out. Maybe some guys remember how I sat at Indy. So yeah, having a good time so far. Good tournament. Good show, guys.
Now tell me a little bit, you said you made some mistakes in that last match. What does your team look like when it's played perfect? What are some of the biggest strengths of your team?
I think, okay, so my Coco is Electrium Z. I think I Giga will Havoc twice in his Garchomp switch in. And then I don't know, I relied on Rock Slide once, which was probably not the best play. I think the standard team comes down to predicting the right switches from my opponent to bring in my Pokemon, because I mean in the Muro he has Coco and Arcanine and they're like both weak to my Earthquake from Garchomp. So it's important to bring Garchomp in at the right moment and then spam Earthquakes. Yeah, I think I can improve my play for the next rounds. Maybe we will see each other back at some point at this day. I hope I make it to Top Cut and then we can like have another small talk.
Absolutely. I know that you have a lot of people here that you practice with, that you love to play with. You're coming into this competition as somebody who got to come right into day 2, so you know the way the competition looks. Is there anyone out here that you're really hoping that you get to face, or anyone that you hope you don't hit in the competition?
Okay, so there are like 2 players, there are now 3 players. First player is Zelda. I really want to play Sam. He's from Australia. He beat me last time at Worlds and like he's trash talking me all the time because he beat me twice. So I want to get my revenge. Then I don't want to finish my season losing twice to Yuri. So Yuri is one player I want to face and hopefully win. And then there's like my top 8 rematch from Worlds last year, which is Edu from Portugal. So those 3 guys, I hope I can face at least 2 and like beat both. Yeah, that's like my plan for this weekend.
That sounds awesome. I love to see those matches with a good story behind them. Best of luck. Congratulations again, Barris.
Thank you very much.
Now we'll head back to our desk. Casters, back to you.
Well, congratulations, Barris. I think taking a win in round 1 will certainly be a way to line yourself up to possibly, get some of those rematches in from past years.
Yeah, he's got a really long list there of names that he wants to take. I mean, a really worldwide set of names as well, and those would be great matches to see. And hopefully we'd see a couple of them in Top Cut. Barris has got to have some really good confidence coming into the rest of the day. Of course, Zehuan taking that loss in a really kind of galling fashion. Definitely a player who can bounce back from it, though.
Definitely. So best of luck to both Barris and Zehuan. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back soon with more Pokemon action here from the World Championships.
Welcome back, Pokemon fans, to the 2017 Pokemon Video Game World Championships. It's your boy, Dwee, joined by the ever-so-wonderful Gabby Snyder. Well, we're getting ready to jump into round 2, and, well, guess what? It's going to be a very exciting matchup between Marcus Statter versus Ryuza Burrow Hosano from Japan.
All the way from Japan.
All the way from Japan. He actually had to play through day 1 of the World Championships, qualified for day 2, and you know the Japanese circuit's a lot different than the circuit that we're used to. It's a lot more best of 1. It's about online tournaments and stuff like that too. So being able to come all the way out to day 1 of the World Championships is already a task in itself, and also making it through day 1.
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked a little bit about this earlier when I was with Adam, but, day 1 yesterday was a huge grind for players to get through, and, anybody who's able to make it through day 1 and come to day 2 and do well is really someone who's definitely worthy of the World Championship title. But, Marcus, we've seen him in the top 4 of Worlds last year. We've seen him all around this past season, even behind the commentary desk a couple of times, I think.
Absolutely.
So, he's definitely an experienced player. He's not someone that you want to see so early on here in day 2. And even though he wasn't playing yesterday for his invitation to compete today, I think he's definitely a force to be contended with.
Some people consider Marcus one of the greatest players to have not been able to win a world championship. He's had multiple national championship title belts that he's won. In the international championships just recently, this entire season he's had good results in the international championships. Last year coming off a top 4 world championship run where unfortunately he got paired up versus his best friend Wolf Glick. Anyways, we're ready to jump now into the match. We got interesting teams here. Marcus on your left, Ryuza Burrow on your right, running Gyarados. Marcus is running Gyarados, Slowking, Lucario, Marowak in its Alolan form, Alolan Persian, and Tapu Bulu on the right side. Ryuza Burrow running Tapu Koko, Snorlax, Raichu in its Alolan form, Ninetales in its Alolan form, Garchomp, and Mimikyu.
Wow, so I think last round we had teams that were very safe picks, teams that had been doing very well throughout the year, and this is just something completely different. On Marcus's side of the field, we have that Lucario, we have that Alolan Marowak, the Alolan Persian, the Tapu Bulu, the Slowking, the Gyarados. I don't think any of those Pokemon has really made a consistent appearance at any of the international level tournaments and possibly even any of the regional tournaments. I know Tapu Bulu has a couple of regional wins, I think, under its belt, but that's really it. On Ryu's side of the field, that Tapu Koko, the Snorlax, the Garchomp, all very consistent Pokemon. Alolan Ninetales there to help out with that Aurora Veil, maybe possibly some speed control with the Icy Wind. What I'm really curious to see is how he's going to utilize that Mimikyu and how he's going to utilize the Alolan Raichu. We saw towards the end of yesterday an Alolan Raichu with Fake Out Encore, the Stoked Surge Surfer Z move that was able to do so much damage and paralyze one of the Pokemon on the opposing side of the field. He certainly has decided to bring options.
Yeah, and actually yesterday we saw Lucario on stream, piloted by American Alex Underhill. Lucario is a cool Pokemon. Fighting type is a very good attacking type, and of course it's one of the few Pokemon in this format that get access to Follow Me. Ready to get underway here. Game 1 of round 2 of day 2 of the World Championships between these two amazing players. Alolan Persian and Gyarados are the leads that Marcus decides to go with, and Ryuza Burrow running the Mimikyu and Ninetales.
So Marcus deciding to go with a pretty classic combination in terms of a lead. You have a Pokemon that can learn Fake Out paired with an Intimidate to weaken the attacking potential of the Pokemon on the opposing side of the field. Whereas Ryuza Burrow, it looks like his team has a little bit of Trick Room potential here. Mimikyu certainly does not appreciate the Intimidate. It's possible that he might be trying to use Ninetales to get something like that Aurora Veil up, so then Mimikyu can use Trick Room, and then the Snorlax can take the field alongside of it to start, boosting whatever stats it decides to boost, maybe with a Curse, maybe with a Stockpile, maybe that Belly Drum move, and just slowly make its way through Marcus's team.
Here we go, getting ready to get started here. Persian using its Fake Out here. Gonna make Ninetales flinch and possibly break a Focus Sash if it's carrying it. And Gyarados, of course, using Taunt, a move that it gets to try to help support the team a little bit, as Mimikyu now cannot use Trick Room after that Taunt. So a very great turn 1 right there from Marcus, breaking a potential Focus Sash and not allowing Ryuza Burrow's to move at all.
It's very interesting that the Mimikyu on Ryuzaburo's side of the field does not hold that mental herb item. That could be an indication that this Mimikyu is either holding maybe a focus sash, as we saw, I believe, Wolf bring yesterday, or maybe it's holding one of those Z crystals. Certainly a great read by Marcus there to, block the setup of the Aurora Veil with the fake out, block the setup of the Trick Room with that taunt. So Ryuzaburo really needs to sort of adjust this turn. I think Mimikyu is probably safe to stay out on the field for a little bit longer. It does still have that disguise up, and it can learn moves such as Play Rough to threaten the Persian.
Ooh, now Persian using Rain Dance here, going to take away any possibility of an Aurora Veil on Ryuzaburo's side, and of course that also boosts Gyarados' powerful water type attacks. Ninetales though going on the offensive here, going for a Freeze Dry. That is going to be 4 times super effective against that Gyarados.
Ooh.
But Gyarados barely hangs up, but gets frozen. Gets frozen in its tracks, frozen in the sky, but, Gyarados does get much weight on its berry here in a pinch. Gonna heal back 50% right there with the Ayapapa berry. Mimikyu now using Shadow Claw, gonna connect onto Gyarados as well, doubling up into that Gyarados slot. Is Gyarados gonna be able to move? No, it is not. It is gonna go ahead and stay frozen.
Gyarados stays frozen, but it's also slower than the Mimikyu, which I find very interesting. If Ryuzaburo had gotten the Trick Room up earlier, that could have been an indication that the Gyarados would have moved first, at which point that Mimikyu might have been in a bad spot. So it's almost advantageous to Ryuzaburo that the Trick Room did not succeed. Now he's able to attack that Gyarados first with the Freeze Dry, maybe follow up with another Shadow Claw, though the Freeze Dry should be enough to get that knockout. I think it's great that Ryuzaburo did essentially ignore the Persian that turn, because Persian, outside of Fake Out, can't really deal that much damage to the Pokemon on Ryuzaburo's side of the field. Maybe a foul play into that Mimikyu could, it would break the disguise and would probably bring it down within range of getting knocked out by the Gyarados, but overall, not the biggest threat for him to manage right now.
Gyarados now forces to switch out, going to preserve it for just a little bit later as Marowak comes in, and it looks like, all right, well, it's going to be a Persian here is going to start Darkinium Z and going to go ahead and use its Z move right here. It is going to be a Z parting shot. Bye-bye Persian, going to go ahead and go away. Ninetales' attack drops, and so does its special attack drop as Persian retreats back to Marcus's bench. So Z parting shot, cool move. Haven't seen that used much at all.
Haven't seen it used much at all, and it's a supportive use of the Z move. It will restore Marcus's Alolan Persian's health, which could be interesting, but not the Persian, the Gyarados actually on the switch-in. So Gyarados able to stick around for a little bit longer, back at full health, will be able to intimidate that Mimikyu one more time, but still not a common move you see on that Persian.
Yep, and of course Gyarados is still frozen, which is Marcus is gonna have to rely on it to thaw out. The Freeze Dry lands into that Marowak slot, not doing that much damage at all. And of course that Shadow Claw, thanks to that Intimidate, not going to be doing that much damage to that Gyarados as well. The taunt does wear off, so now Mimikyu can start setting up Trick Room or do any sort of support moves, but that Marowak will be underspeeding everything on the field.
It will be, so I don't think Trick Room is really the play for Ryuzaburo, and I don't think we'll see it at all, moving forwards, given how slow that Gyarados is as well. The Slowking on Marcus's team, to me, indicates that he's very comfortable with the Trick Room option. So sometimes setting up Trick Room for your opponent's benefit is really not the best possible move. So Ryuzaburo, I think he should keep things at the current speed. I think he probably needs to start focusing down on that Marowak a little bit more, maybe with that Mimikyu, that Shadow Claw, get Ninetales out so it can bring Hail back to the field a little bit later. And Snorlax is a pretty great switch right now. Doesn't have to worry about the Intimidate, and if Marowak uses a Ghost-type move, doesn't have to worry about damage.
Gyarados going to switch out, going to still use that... Oh, all right, the Shadow Bone does go into that Snorlax slot, and Mimikyu now using this turn to set up a Trick Room to allow that Snorlax to start underspeeding things. Persian does come in, which means it gets Fake Out Pressure, which is going to be useful in order for Marcus to kind of fire that off and make something not be able to move. Of course, it will have to be that Snorlax slot.
It will have to be that Snorlax slot, but I don't know if you want to set up your Snorlax, boosting its attack when you're staring down an Alolan Persian. I think other than Parting Shot, the move that Alolan Persian is most well known for is going to be that Foul Play, which uses your own attack against you, but this Snorlax clearly has its own agenda.
Yep, Snorlax now using Rock Slide here, going to hit both Marowak and Persian, as now Marowak goes for the Shadow Bone, going to hit onto Mimikyu and finally bust that disguise. One thing to note is if the Snorlax is a curse variant, that Foul Play will not be able to get boosted thanks to the defense boost from that curse. So if it's Belly Drum variant, then that might be a bit more problematic, as Mimikyu now going for a Never Ending Nightmare using its Ghostinium Z here. it is going to be, yep, there it is, the Never-Ending Nightmare, going to be probably trying to KO this Marowak here. Going to do a good amount of damage since it is boosted from that Shadow Claw attack that we've seen already. And that is just such a cool animation that we rarely get to see. Marowak does get KO'd.
Yeah, Marowak being dragged down into and Never-Ending Nightmare for that knockout.
Ooh.
I'm more curious about what this Snorlax has planned. You never see Snorlax with Rock Slide, at least traditionally on, this side of the world. You have to usually see the Snorlax spend a couple turns using Recycle, using Curse, using Belly Drum to sort of boost itself. Whereas this Snorlax more than happy to go immediately for that Rock Slide, getting a flinch on that Persian right off the bat. Certainly has to worry about the Tapu Bulu, who's more than happy to use a move like Wood Hammer to get the boost from the grassy terrain to deal a ton of damage. But I don't think this Snorlax wants to set up. I think it wants to use Rock Slide under the Trick Room and let its buddy Mimikyu start dealing damage to help, whittle down the field.
Yeah, but if you want to do that, then you do have to switch out that Mimikyu since it has been intimidated twice. So this is a really defensive team coming from Marcus if you think about it. Tapu Bulu provides the grassy terrain. Z Parting Shot allows himself to heal his partner Pokemon, whatever switches in. And of course, Gyarados was holding that Aya Papa Bear, which healed it back up so much. Now Tapu Bulu using Bulk Up after taking a powerful attack from that Snorlax here. Now Tapu Bulu is trying to set up, and of course Tapu Bulu has pretty... The Will-O-Wisp dodged, or it missed that Tapu Bulu, and now the Persian using Foul Play on that Snorlax. The rain does stop, as now every Pokemon on the field gets some residual recovery thanks to that grassy terrain.
I really want to see what this Tapu Bulu is going to use moving forwards. Bulk Up is really interesting because it sort of counteracts the negatives to Tapu Bulu's only fighting type move that it knows, Superpower. So after you use a Superpower, your attack and your defense are dropped by 1 stage each. Bulk Up raises your attack and defense by 1 stage. So by using the Bulk Up that turn, Marcus has essentially given himself a quote-unquote free Superpower to use against that Snorlax. It looks like Snorlax is sitting at about 75% of its health, and given how common of a Pokemon it is, I would be highly surprised if Marcus hadn't run this damage calc in preparation to know, okay, if I do this, I can knock out that Snorlax before its berry activates. But Mimikyu apparently the bigger threat.
Yep, Mimikyu gets hit with a critical hit Horn Leech, and that's going to go ahead and allow Tapu Bulu to heal right back up thanks to the attacks description and also from the grassy terrain. Now, Persian going to go ahead and switch back out, save that Fake Out support for later on. Going to go ahead and also drop the attack stat on that Snorlax as well. So again, that Parting Shot, it's really paying off huge dividends right there. And Marcus was one of the pioneers of using that Alolan Persian, with that Parting Shot, with that Fake Out support, with that Fur Coat ability. Now Gyarados comes in and drops Snorlax's attack yet again with another Intimidate. So even though this Gyarados is frozen, it's still doing so much work just coming in, coming out, and coming back in for more Intimidate support.
Yeah, you can tell how comfortable Marcus is with that Alolan Persian on his team. The synergy between switching the Persian out with Parting Shot, getting to drop both the attack and the special attack into a Pokemon with Intimidate to further drop the opposing Pokemon's attack by 1 stage is really making it easy for him to sort of whittle down the turns for Trick Room. Yes, Snorlax is going to be moving first, and yes, Snorlax could use more Rock Slides at this point if Ryuzaburo does not want to switch his Snorlax out to regain its attack for when it comes back, but that takes time. And with Trick Room on the field, you really want to keep, making sure that whatever you're doing, you're whittling down that time so when it's over, you can start moving faster, you can start dealing damage, and you can start sort of cleaning up the game.
Yep, and of course that Bulk Up from a bit earlier just paying off huge dividends as well. That Horn Leech did massive amounts of damage, boosted by the same type of attack bonus, and also boosted by that grassy terrain. Gyarados switching out again, just preserving it for later. Persian comes back in, getting that Fake Out support. I think Ninetales might be KO'd by a possible Horn Leech, but instead Ninetales now protects itself. That could also put Snorlax at threat if it doesn't... Oh, Snorlax now using Belly Drum. What a great time to have Persian in to be able to go for a possible foul play. And of course, Snorlax now maximizing his attack stat. 6 stages of increased attack, essentially 4 times that normal attack stat as it goes ahead and munches away on its Figgy Berry here. Tapu Bulu using Horn Leech in that 9-tail slot. So now the Fake Out support is on the field, which puts Marcus in decent position.
The Fake Out support is on the field, and Trick Room, I believe, only has one or two turns remaining. So using Fake Out on the Snorlax this turn, using Hornleech to knock out the Ninetales. At that point, all you have to do is let the Twisted Dimensions return to normal and use Snorlax's own attack boost against it thanks to the foul play. And really, that's what makes Alolan Persian shine as a Pokemon. Or you could just let the Trick Room, you know, run out this turn. You don't even need to use Fake Out anymore. Just attack the Snorlax, hope that your Tapu Bulu survives the Ninetales, Blizzard, or Freeze Dry, or whatever Ice-type move it's bringing with it, and use Tapu Bulu to knock it out. Snorlax it's a great Pokemon, but if you're able to use its own sort of strengths against it, or even just force your opponent to give up the belly drum, that is huge in your favor.
Snorlax forced to switch out, does not want to get KO'd by that foul play. Gonna sacrifice his belly drum boost and switch in Tapu Koko as Tapu Bulu here protects. Gonna try to buy one turn of it surviving on the field. Persian going for that foul play, hitting into what was that Snorlax. Instead, Tapu Koko takes that way better thanks to its fairy typing. Ninetales using Blizzard, gonna go ahead and hit Persian on its weaker special defense side, and of course also trying to chip away at that Tapu Bulu. But Persian hangs on with about 40% as continually every Pokemon field is going to be chipped away. No more grassy terrain healing, which means that the hail will start slowly whittling away at every Pokemon that's not ice type.
Yes, so Tapu Bulu not going to benefit as much from those grass-type move boosts either, so might not be able to even knock out the Ninetales with a Hornleech, given the fact that the terrain is now present. Ninetales, even though that Snorlax is running sort of a different set than what we're expecting, I think the Blizzard Freeze Dry usually means it's something that we can anticipate. Persian happy to weaken that special attack, though, to try and give Tapu Bulu a chance to knock it out.
Yep, and here goes Persian right back into the bench of Marcus. Gyarados is going to come in. Intimidate's not going to matter too much against Ninetales and this Tapu Koko. Of course, now the important part is that Ninetales' Blizzard might not be able to get the KO on the Tapu Bulu, and of course Tapu Bulu can just heal right back up with it Hornleech. Tapu Koko now going for a Dazzling Gleam, going to connect on both Gyarados and Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu, of course, a lot less bulky on its special side. This Blizzard connects and should get the KO on Tapu Bulu. Oh! Bulu hangs on with just one hit point and eats away at its berry and heals back up. Such a bulky team here from Marcus, and that Figgy Berry heals the Tapu Bulu right back up. Hornleech connects on Tapu Koko, picks up the KO, and Tapu Bulu, without that grassy terrain, still doing so much damage thanks to that bulk up from earlier, and heals right back up, and it will now for sure be able to hang on with yet another Blizzard.
Parting Shot is such a great move. I mean, it lowered Ninetales' special attack just enough for that Tapu Bulu to hold on, eat that berry, and then knock out the opposing Tapu Koko. With Snorlax on the field, it's still a little bit of an uphill battle. We know that Snorlax does not have a boosted attack anymore, which means that as soon as Persian does make a reappearance, it's only going to deal about maybe a quarter worth of damage to its health with foul play. So if Ryuzaburo were to, maybe double into that Tapu Bulu here, hope that Gyarados stays frozen so it can't do whatever it wants to do to support Marcus and help him out here. That might be his best option moving forwards. But even though Marcus has been essentially down a Pokemon this entire game, just the act of switching in and out that Gyarados with that Alolan Persian, it's working so well for him.
Absolutely, and this is, again, such a bulky team exhibited by Marcus Statter. Before this round, he actually had to face off against the Japanese national champion. He's very well aware of what the Japanese metagame is just like, and he's kind of playing very bulky here as Tapu Bulu protects itself. Gonna probably just try to sacrifice this Gyarados here to allow Persian come back in, but Gyarados, again, so bulky as well. Still frozen solid, not gonna be able to move at all. Snorlax going for the return, hitting in that Tapu Bulu protect, trying to pick up the KO there. Gyarados is hit by the hail, and of course that right there is the KO. So Gyarados, even though it got frozen essentially in the early stages of the game, it still came in, started intimidating, and now this Gyarados getting knocked out allows Marcus a free switch in. Using that fake out pressure, the Persian will be able to definitely deal with that Snorlax if it tries to set up, and of course Tapu Bulu will be able to do so much damage to that Ninetales.
Yeah, Ryuzaburo, I think, needs to focus in on this Tapu Bulu if he wants to win this game. The Alolan Persian with the foul play won't be able to deal as much damage to Ninetales. If anything, it'll just remove the hail from the field after it's done with the fake out for this turn. If Ryuzaburo is able to knock out the Tapu Bulu, despite the fact that one of the Pokemon on his side of the field will not be moving this turn, I think he can pretty handily win this. So it's still very close, even though it looks like, you know, Marcus is in sort of the driver's seat in terms of how this match is progressing.
Ninetales now using Protect, not going to want to get KO'd just yet. Persian going for the fake out into that Ninetales slot, trying to make it flinch, but instead Tapu Bulu goes for the KO on to Ryuzaburo's Snorlax, and that is clearly enough to get the KO. A critical hit, not going to matter too much. Tapu Bulu's attack and defense drops are essentially null now.
Yeah, so I think Marcus has a pretty easy play moving forwards in this game. He needs to use another parting shot and just hope that that Blizzard or Freeze Dry will not be enough to knock out the Tapu Bulu. Given the fact that Hail is gone from the field, it shouldn't do enough damage, and we know that without the Hail, the accuracy of that Blizzard will be lowered as well. So great job by Marcus. He did an amazing job identifying and mitigating all of the threats on Ryozaburo's side of the field, and yeah, that's just not enough damage, and no freeze either.
Yep, here comes the Horn Leech from the Tapu Bulu, doing about 50% to that Ninetales. Of course, now Blizzard outside of the Hail is going to be not 100% accurate, and, well, Marcus really played out to his outs. I mean, he found the win condition that he needed. He realized that turn, all right, let's get rid of this Snorlax, and then I'll deal with Ninetales on my own. And, you know, Marcus is, again, dubbed one of the best players of all time, and you can exactly see what's going on here. Persian going for yet another parting shot on that Ninetales, dropping special attack stat, and Tapu Bulu should be able to seal the deal here. Freeze Dry connects onto Tapu Bulu. Is there going to be a freeze here? There is not a freeze. Oh, there is a freeze. Okay, all right. Tapu Bulu is frozen solid, and Tapu Bulu remains frozen solid. So that was Ryuzaburo's out, but Ninetales is going to have to do a lot of work considering special attack stat is dropped so much.
And it's going to keep dropping further. Persian, all it needs to do is keep clicking that parting shot button and hope that the Ninetales will be knocked out, that Tapu Bulu will thaw before it's able to get a critical hit on the Tapu Bulu with that Freeze Dry.
Yep, and here's another parting shot. Now Ninetales is dropped to 3 stages of decreased special attack, and here comes yet another Ninetales Freeze Dry here, going to connect on to Tapu Bulu. Is Tapu Bulu going to be able to throw out yet? No, not quite yet. Still frozen, and now I believe it might be, well, it's going to change because Persian keeps dropping that special attack stat.
It really is. So again, a critical hit is exactly what Ryozaburo is sort of fishing for right now. I think, though, going into Game 2, regardless of the outcome of this game, he's going to have to figure out a better way to handle this Alolan Persian. It's just done so much of meddling with his team's momentum overall. It takes something like a freeze, 2 freezes even, for him to be able to just handle the threat of not being able to deal so much damage because of that parting shot, because of the cycling of the Intimidates. Alolan Persian, it's a bulky Pokemon, so it's certainly something that he'll have to sort of build his team around to play better, but he has something like the Tapu Koko and the Alolan Raichu. We know that with the electric terrain, Alolan Raichu will move faster. He might just have to try something like that.
The attack won't drop anymore. Ninetales again going for the Freeze Dry. Tapu Bulu has to thaw out here. Tapu Bulu will maybe be able to hang on after one more, but Tapu Bulu is continuing to stay frozen solid. So now it's going to essentially come down to whether or not Tapu Bulu can survive and thaw out. The Persian does have access to foul play, but at the same time, you know, Ninetales does resist it, and Ninetales is not known as a physical attacker. And of course, you've also dropped its attack stat all the way to the bare minimum. Here we go. Persian now just going for the foul play. Gonna hit into that Ninetales, doing about 5 damage right there. Here's another Freeze Dry. It's gonna connect onto the Tapu Bulu. It should be enough to pick at the key. No, Tapu Bulu hangs on. Tapu Bulu stays frozen solid. And fortunately for Marcus Datter, that Tapu Bulu is now gonna be getting KO'd because of the freeze, and that is so unfortunate for Marcus. We thought he had it wrapped up in the bag, but that last second freeze.
And that's Pokemon for you, unfortunately. Sometimes you just get a bit of bad luck because of these freezes. But, you know, Ryozaburo, he had to really rely on that being his out. Again, he didn't really have what he needed on his team to help manage the threat of this Persian, to stop it from using the parting shot to lower his attacker's, you know, damage potential. I really think going into Game 2, he needs to speed things up. He needs to counter Marcus's very slow, very bulky game that he's been playing here with something a little bit more powerful. I really like the Alolan Raichu for this situation. Again, it can get a faster fake out. It can maybe use a Z move or some other large amount of damage onto that Persian right off the bat. But I don't know, maybe Marcus responds to that by bringing Trick Room of his own and playing that a little bit more aggressively.
Yep, and Persian continues to go for those foul plays. If he can get maybe a string of critical hits, that could change the favor in his tide. But again, those freeze dries are doing about 13 damage each time. This one was 16 damage, so
creeping up
you'll
there.
have 2 more, but I just don't think that Ninetales is going to get KO'd with those foul plays. So unfortunate for Marcus, and he had that so wrapped up for him, but that freeze by Ryuza Burrow's Ninetales, oh, so unfortunate. Persian now on its last leg of hit points here, and that should do it here in game 1 between these 2 amazing players. Persian again going for yet another foul play, not going to go out without a fight here. Ninetales, of course, hangs on, and here you go, another freeze ride. Ryuza Burrow takes game 1 here between these 2 amazing players. Marcus still showing sportsmanship. He knows he has all the correct pieces. He just has to hope for a little bit better luck in the next game. All right, now, coming into game 2, Marcus had the setup.
He had the setup. And he did a good job playing to his outs. I know if you're at home, you might be wondering, well, why would you play out those last, 5-6 turns where it's just foul play, freeze dry, foul play, freeze dry? In this case, I think Marcus probably was helping to run down the timer a little bit. We know that he's a very timer-conscious player. I mean, we saw it last round with Barris, one of his training buddies. He played the timer very well throughout that entire game. So sometimes just having it tick down just a couple more minutes can be crucial going into round 2, round 3, and seeing your opponent get those freezes and those outs, maybe you want to hope for a little bit of luck on your own and hope for that critical hit. But yes, moving into game 2, that Persian is definitely public enemy number 1 for Ryuza Burrow. If you're Marcus, I think you want to try and play a little bit more protective of it. Look at the possible counters that Ryuza Burrow can bring into that game. We saw the Mimikyu from him last time. Not really the great matchup against that Persian. I'm not sure if we'll see the Mimikyu again. Maybe that Garchomp, maybe the Snorlax without those attack boost that the Snorlax was going for, just to slowly whittle down that Persian's health before it's able to lock itself in a spot where all it needs to do is just press foul play or parting shot and just allow Marcus again to keep cycling through everything.
Yep, and here we go, getting ready to get started in game 2 here between these 2 players. Marcus Statter on your left, and of course on your right, Ryuza Burrow Hosano of Japan. Ryuza Burrow coming off a day 1 victory, pretty much being able to qualify through that gauntlet of players from all around the world. Marcus, he's had a very successful season all the way around. Now, Alolan Raichu and Snorlax are the leads that Ryuza Burrow decides to go with. And of course, Marcus going with his bread and butter, that Persian and that Gyarados. That Intimidate is going to go ahead and drop Snorlax's attack, but now we do know something about the Snorlax, and that it is going to be a Belly Drum variant, and that it can easily wash away any sort of drops.
It's interesting that the Alolan Raichu made an appearance without his partner Tapu Koko on the field. Alolan Raichu requires the electric terrain in order to be able to outspeed that Persian, so might be an indication of what kind of Alolan Raichu Ryuza Burrow decided to bring with him on his team. Maybe he doesn't want that speed right now, or maybe he was worried about the potential Tapu Bulu lead from Marcus, being able to wipe out the electric terrain and leave Alolan Raichu in a spot where it has to switch out in order to start doing what it does best.
Persian now using its fake out, making Raichu flinch here. Now Gyarados using Taunt on that Snorlax to not allow it to set up. Snorlax now going for a Rock Slide here, probably trying to cover his bases, maybe expecting a Marowak to switch in place of that. In order to deal with that, Raichu does do significant damage to that Gyarados, but again, that Intimidate from earlier, right off the bat, huge.
Definitely. Snorlax, since it's taunted, probably won't be sticking around much longer. Great job by Marcus there, sort of forcing Ryuza Burrow to switch as he moves forward in this game. With the Intimidate setter out on the field, we probably will see Persian use its parting shot to allow Marcus to get something a little bit more offensive alongside of that Gyarados. Maybe the Tapu Bulu? I can't see anything really that Ryuza Burrow has revealed so far in this game that would threaten it from not being able to use that bulk up or not being being able to otherwise start attacking the Pokemon on Ryozuburo's side of the field. He has to worry a little bit about whether or not that Raichu has Encore, but for now, Snorlax is still the bigger threat.
Yep, here comes the parting shot. Going to go ahead and drop Snorlax's attack. I wouldn't be surprised to see that Marowak come in to be able to use its Lightning Rod ability and draw away any electric type attacks from that Gyarados. Of course, that parting shot hitting that Snorlax to drop its attack so that Rock Slide won't be doing that much damage. But here comes a speed swap from that Raichu. Okay, now they've switched speeds, and Gyarados using this turn to set up its Dragon Dance.
I was not expecting a speed swap from the Alolan Raichu, that's for sure. It's a really interesting play because Snorlax now is at, -2 attack thanks to that parting shot. It looks like it might have gotten a critical hit on that. No, it just still does a decent amount of damage to that Gyarados. It's a really interesting time to reveal that because on the one hand, you don't want the Snorlax to be sticking around on the field too long while it's been intimidated so much. You don't want the Persian to come in and possibly continue to lower the attack further, but yet here we are. Raichu did swap its speed with the Snorlax, so maybe Ryuzuburo is taking a lesson from game one and just saying, you know what, I need luck to win this matchup, so I'm going to start, seeing if I can get those flinches.
Playing around with speeds is something that we haven't seen with that new move introduced in these new games. Garchomp now going to switch in. Gyarados going for the Waterfall here. Going to hit into that Snorlax slot, but Snorlax is such a bulky Pokemon. It hangs on, and of course now, since it's so fast, with that Raichu speed, goes for another Rock Slide here. It is super effective on both Pokemon. It does activate Gyarados' berry that we saw earlier. It's going to be the Ayapapa berry. And, Marowak flinches, can't move, and that's one thing now. This is a fast rock-sliding Snorlax. Things can flinch from Snorlax, not in Trick Room.
Things can flinch from Snorlax, and things can potentially flinch from that Garchomp as well. Might be a good time for Snorlax to try and rely on its buddy Garchomp to help clear the field for it so it can use Belly Drum now to get its health back up. We haven't seen Snorlax consume any sort of berry quite yet, so could be a really good time, especially since Marowak is switching around.
Persian switching back in right now, gonna get Fake Out pressure and that parting shot pressure. Gyarados going for yet another Waterfall, hitting in that Garchomp slot thanks to that Dragon Dance, still doing so much, about 50% right there. The Rough Skin does do some recoil back to that Gyarados, but here comes another Rock Slide from the Snorlax, gonna hit that Gyarados, and again, this is so strange for me to see this Snorlax go for this Garchomp, and here it is, a double Rock Slide here. Hitting into Gyarados, gets the KO on that Gyarados, and Persian still not taking that much damage thanks to that Fur Coat ability. So this Snorlax is outspeeding the Garchomp, going for a Rock Slide, followed up by yet another Rock Slide from that Garchomp. As we've mentioned before, Rock Slide is one of the best moves in the game simply because it's a double target attack and also has that flinch chance. Here comes Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu now going to try to help Marcus try to seal the deal here.
If you would have told me this morning that we would see a Snorlax with Rock Slide here, outspeeding a Gyarados to attack, I would have been very surprised. Or not a Gyarados, but, just be faster than that Garchomp. Tapu Bulu, it's going to want to probably go straight for that superpower into the Snorlax. I highly doubt Marcus will want to keep the option of 2 Rock Slides against him as something that Ryuzuburo can use. So fake out one of these Pokemon and just hope that the other Pokemon will be knocked out, or go straight for the foul play into the Garchomp and hope that it knocks
gets the
out.
KO. So huge foul play right there from that Persian, gets the KO on that Garchomp, and now, well, there's only one Pokemon Rock Sliding away. Snorlax instead going for a return here, going to try to KO this Tapu Bulu, but thanks to those Intimidates, thanks to those parting shots, Tapu Bulu instead also is just saying, hey, guess what? Time for me to set up, time for me to use Tapu Bulu to sweep. And of course, Persian still has access to its Darkinium Z to go for another Z parting shot as well.
It's really curious to me that the Snorlax went for the return there rather than go for another Rock Slide. You would think that at -2 attack, Snorlax's really its best utility in this situation would be to try and stop the Tapu Bulu from setting up. From game one that return wouldn't deal enough damage, even if you weren't intimidated, to get anywhere near a knockout. So relying on the 30% flinch rate from Rock Slide might have been your best play. I can't help but wonder, maybe there's something Ryuzuburo has in the back that would appreciate having that chip damage on the Tapu Bulu so that it can't use the bulk up that it just got to use superpower and knock out that Snorlax. Ninetales can deal some damage to the Tapu Bulu. Right now, the Hail is still on the field, so Blizzard is an option, but Persian does have Rain Dance. So it's a really precarious position to be in again, and it almost feels like Ryuzaburo is just putting himself into these spots where he has to rely on just a little bit more luck than usual to try and maneuver his way out of it. Even though Marcus is, it looks like he's sort of at a disadvantage having the Tapu Bulu be slower than the Snorlax, who's faster than anybody could imagine a Snorlax to be.
Yep, and here comes that Z parting shot from that Alolan Persian. Oh boy, it's going to go ahead and heal whatever Pokemon, so that Marowak coming right back in, going to heal right back up, and also at the same time drop an attacking stat from one of these Pokemon. It is going to be that Ninetales to allow Tapu Bulu to deal with those blizzards much, much better. And here it goes. Persian goes back. Marowak comes in. Marowak heals right back up. And now, well, this Tapu Bulu can heavily threaten a KO on that Snorlax or also do a lot of damage to that Ninetales. But of course, Marowak also has a very good matchup against the Ninetales as well. So good switch right here from Marcus. Good use of that parting shot. Good use of, really setting up. And now Snorlax goes for a belly jump, but that could be punishable here from Marcus' Tapu Bulu. Snorlax does maximize its attack, but it is going to heal right back up. But it should be in range for yet another superpower KO. So where is this Tapu Bulu going to hit into? Ninetales using Blizzard, going to connect thanks to the hail, making it absolutely 100% accurate. Hits Tapu Bulu, super effective damage. No freezes, no freezes. Tapu Bulu goes for a Horn Leech here. Gonna hit into that Snorlax and do so much damage. Barely is enough to get the KO, so unfortunate miss of the KO right there, because now this is a fast belly drum Snorlax.
This is a fast belly drum Snorlax that will be knocked out by hail in one turn. So if Tapu Bulu and Alolan Marowak both know Protect...
It actually won't because of the grassy terrain.
Oh, right. Never mind. So with that grassy terrain, Snorlax buys itself a little bit more time. So Marcus's terrain working against him, which is something you really have to keep in mind in situations like this. That Snorlax, that was such a risky play, I think, there, using the belly drum and just hoping that you can survive whatever attack Tapu Bulu throws out. If it had been the superpower, with the attack boost, I think that might have been enough to actually just flat out knock out that Snorlax. So it's still a really close game, and there's still a lot of ways that this Snorlax could be knocked out. We know the Persian's in the back. We know it has Fake Out. Fake Out is a priority move, and that will buy one turn of time for whatever Pokemon is alongside that Persian to knock out the Snorlax and then hopefully be able to deal with that Ninetales. So maybe Marcus should just let the Alolan Marowak get knocked out by a Rock Slide here so Persian can come in and help him clean up.
Yep, and now Snorlax going for a very, very powerful Rock Slide. Gets the KO on Marowak, but that just means that Alolan Persian gets to come back in, threatened with a Fake Out, also threatened with a foul play because that, well, here comes an Aurora Veil, but, it's going to boost the defenses on Ryuzaburo's team for 5 turns, barring it holding a light clay. So yeah, it's Persian still outspeeds that Snorlax. That's one of the benefits of Persian outspeeding that Raichu from earlier, because that speed swap, it's not going to be cutting it just quite.
It's not going to be cutting it just quite at all. But again, the novelty of a fast Snorlax is something that should not be left uncongratulated, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. But yeah, it's not really about speed right now. It's about Fake Out. If this Snorlax can't stop that Fake Out, it's not really looking at surviving this turn. And then it's going to be down to Ryuzaburo's last Pokemon along with the Ninetales. I don't think he should count on Snorlax being able to survive the turn unless he's saving something like a Protect that we haven't seen yet. Probably switch the Ninetales out, have it come back in at, full special attack the next turn so that it can threaten that Tapu Bulu instead of being, at minus, I believe, 2 it would be after another parting shot. But again, this is Pokemon. Anything can happen. And if Marcus tries to maybe play a little bit smart here and go immediately for the foul play into the Snorlax, that'll knock it out too.
Yep, that gets the KO. And of course, I've heard of speed creep, but this is just kind of a bit much in terms of speed creep with that Snorlax using Speed Swap. Finally gets KO'd, and this Blizzard hits both Persian and Tapu Bulu.
Oh,
Tapu Bulu gets frozen yet again. It has to thaw out, but no, it stays frozen. Oh, not like this, Marcus, no.
Ryuzaburo's luck is incredible. Maybe he should keep relying on these freezes because it's working for him, and it's working very well.
I mean, when you throw out that many blizzards and ice type attacks, something is bound to get frozen. Unfortunately for Marcus, it just happens to be this Tapu Bulu. So this Tapu Bulu is, it's chilly. It's just chilling out right now.
It's chilling out a little bit too much. Raichu will be the last Pokemon that Ryuzaburo sends out onto the field. Since Raichu and Raichu's the only Pokemon that has its Fake Out available to it right now, it's probably more than happy to fake out that Persian and hope that Ninetales is able to knock it out with a Blizzard before there's another parting shot.
Here comes that Fake Out in that Persian slot. We do see Raichu have the Life Orb. Persian flinches, cannot move. Ninetales goes for another Blizzard. That should be enough to get the KO on that Persian. Tapu Bulu hangs on. Here we go. Just one more. You gotta thaw out. You gotta thaw out.
Oh, he gets the thaw
Gets the
with
Horn
the
Leech.
Horn Leech into the Ninetales. Doesn't knock it out, though. Instead, will heal its health back almost up to above half, and it's down to just this Raichu and this Ninetales versus the +1 attack, +1 defense Tapu Bulu.
Yeah, but still, it's going to be close. This Ninetales has the upper hand. Again, that Aurora Veil from turns prior just paying off huge dividends, allowing that Ninetales to survive. Of course, it could also be carrying that Focus Sash, which was not broken. Here it goes. The grass disappears from the field. It's going to be a full-power Blizzard, so it's going to be doing more damage. It's going to be doing single target damage. So you maybe try to stall out the hail?
I don't know. I mean, we know that Tapu Bulu has Protect, so I think stalling out the hail or even just stalling out the Aurora Veil is probably your best option in this situation. But we don't know what this Raichu has. If Tapu Bulu had gone for Protect here and Raichu had Encore, that would have been the end of the game. Instead, it looks like a Psychic and... Oh.
Psychic, and now Tapu Bulu gets to eat away at its berry. Going to go back away out of Blizzard range, hopefully for Marcus here for this round. Tapu Bulu doesn't get KO'd. Tapu Bulu goes for a Horn Leech here, going to connect onto Raichu, needs to get the KO here and heal back. It does do enough to get the KO on that Raichu, and now just has to survive either a Freeze Dry or another Blizzard. Probably Protect, stall out that Blizzard. Yep. Oh, no, you don't even have to Protect. You just got to survive this Freeze Dry right here. We might be going to game 3 depending on how this damage goes.
I don't know. This is so close. It's so exciting. I think it's safe to assume that any hit from the Tapu Bulu onto the Ninetales this turn will be enough to knock it out. So do you go for Blizzard and
No, Tapu Bulu misses! Tapu Bulu dodges the attack. Now the Horn Leech connects on Ninetales, and we are going to game 3 with just about 10 minutes left on this clock.
Oh, that's been so exciting.
Marcus Statter pulling it out. Tapu Bulu thawing out right when he needs. I think this is scripted.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised given how exciting these games have been, but it must be a relief for Marcus to have Tapu Bulu be able to thaw out in time this time around. You know, when you're playing on such a huge stage for the World Championships, you really don't want to see multiple freezes, multiple flinches show up in games, but hey, if you're able to thaw out in time, it's almost like the freeze never happened, right?
You took a lot of damage there, but still, you know, your support Pokemon Persian got KO'd. But, you know, Tapu Bulu coming in clutch for Marcus right there. And now coming into game 3. You know, that was a lot of information revealed for Marcus here. Ryuzaburo, you know, really surprised me with that speed swap right there. Gonna, you know, give any Pokemon that speed boost. Like, that Snorlax was fast.
That Snorlax was fast, and that Snorlax had Rock Slide, which made it even more terrifying. I want to learn a lot more about this Raichu, though. We know it has Life Orb, so it's not going to be relying on its exclusive Z move. We know that it has Fake Out and Psychic, but we don't know what that last move is. I don't know if it'll make as much of a difference moving forward in this game because, you know, Psychic can't deal damage to Dark-type Pokemon, and Persian is a Dark-type Pokemon. But Ryuzaburo, that Persian still was the Pokemon, I think, that just gave him so much trouble. If it wasn't for those special attack drops on that Ninetales, it would have been able to knock out the Tapu Bulu so much sooner and just given him, I think, a smoother ride into the end of that game. So it's going to be interesting to see how Marcus decides to play this moving forwards. We've seen him lead that Persian in both of these games alongside that Gyarados. So if Ryuzaburo thinks that it's going to happen for a third time and plays accordingly, it could be possible for him to clean this up very quickly. If I were him, I think I would try to save that Ninetales for a little bit later on in the game. Don't put it in the spot where you have to worry about it getting its special attack dropped, and just hope that it can come in and clean up.
I think one thing that Ryuzaburo needs to do is definitely try to KO that Tapu Bulu much
That
faster,
too.
because that Tapu Bulu setting up with one bulk up just does so much damage. Of course, that Aurora Veil from that Ninetales finally coming out, you know, really helped pay dividends, and of course also made the game very close because that Ninetales was able to hang on for sure with that Horn Leech, boosted Horn Leech.
Well, Ninetales is certainly taking the charge here with Tapu Koko as the lead, and Mark is finally switching up his lead as well.
Yep, now going to go with a Alolan Marowak and a Alolan Persian versus the Ninetales and the Tapu Koko over on Ryusa Burrow's side. The Electric Train does take effect, and of course Ninetales going to go ahead and bring out that Snow warning. Going to make it hail.
This is the first time we've seen the Tapu Koko on Ryuzaburo's side of the field. We know a little bit about this Marowak and the Alolan Persian. I think we know a lot about. So if I were Marcus, I'd be looking to possibly just knock out the Ninetales. Alolan Marowak is certainly capable of doing so with a fire type attack or really any attack paired with a fake out to stop that Aurora Veil. But that really leaves Tapu Koko in an interesting spot. It can't use any of its electric attacks thanks to the Lightning Rod ability that Marowak has, but it can still use Dazzling Gleam if it has that. And Dazzling Gleam is something that Persian, it can survive one, maybe two of those, but you don't want it to be sticking around taking so much chip damage like that.
Tapu Koko forced to switch out, going to switch into Garchomp here to have a slightly better matchup against the Marowak. Now Ninetales protects itself, wanting to keep its Focus Sash intact if it is carrying it. Persian going for a parting shot, hitting in that Garchomp slot, going to go ahead and drop its attack stat. And now Marcus can react to that Garchomp coming in, maybe deal a little bit better, maybe something that can
Intimidate, I think?
intimidate it, or like maybe just KO it outright possibly.
Or get rid of the terrain.
Or even Tapu Bulu to allow the, to really mitigate the amount of damage that Earthquake will be doing.
Yes, it looks like Marcus is taking his time thinking. You know, there's advantages to both, right? On the one hand, if you intimidate the Garchomp, all of its moves will be weaker. But if you bring the Tapu Bulu and Grassy Surge, get that grassy terrain up, you weaken Earthquake, and you also will heal your own Pokemon slightly every turn.
Yep, and the Shadow Bone lands into that Ninetales Protect, not wanting to take so much recoil if that Flare Blitz did connect right there. Also, maybe possibly respecting a Focus Sash. You know, there's no point in using a Flare Blitz, taking all that damage just for Ninetales to survive anyways. Alright, now Garchomp and Ninetales on the field versus Marowak and Tapu Bulu on the field on Marcus's side.
It's an interesting setup. If I were Marcus, I would be tempted to go for the bulk up on the Tapu Bulu, but we haven't seen this Ninetales attack the Tapu Bulu without being affected by some sort of stat drop. So I don't think it's possible for it to be knocked out in one hit, just doing some mental math here, but keeping it safe is definitely the better option right now. The terrain was what he wanted.
Yep, Tapu Bulu switches out, going to go straight back into Persian. Marowak going to protect here, not going to want to get KO'd by a possible Tectonic Rage. Ninetales going for the Blizzard, going to hit Persian on its weaker special defense side because it, Fur Coat, only boosts its physical defense. Ooh, so much damage, about 40%. And here comes the Tectonic Rage from Ryuza Burrow's Garchomp here. If it hits that Marowak slot, it will not be able to fully protect itself and will take a quarter of what it normally would.
Yes, Garchomp revealing the Z move, I think, is really important here for Ryuzaburo. It looks like overall he's been playing this game a lot quicker. He's focusing more on dealing damage, less on, you know, trying to set up that Snorlax with the belly drum and hope that it's enough. It almost looks like he's trying to sort of limit Marcus's switching options, but Persian at just above half its health after the grassy terrain is still going to be able to keep switching around. I really want to know what Marcus's fourth Pokemon is, because if it's that Intimidate, now would be the great time to send it out to weaken that Garchomp. It's already used Z-move. We know it has to rely on something like Rock Slide or maybe an Earthquake, but I don't think that's going to happen this turn.
We've already seen it go for Rock Slide.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, it's an option right now. So that Marowak is still kind of threatened by the Rock Slide. Of course, you know, if there's a Rock Slide, there's always a way because of that flinch chance. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of an interesting spot that Ryuzaburo has put himself in. He really needs to keep sort of relying a little bit more on luck than I think some trainers like to do. And, if that works out for him, we'll see.
Yep, there goes a foul play in that Garchomp slot, doing about 35%, and the freeze dry hits that Persian, almost gets the KO, but it hangs on. Of course, this Rock Slide should be able to pick up the KO from there, and Marowak still gets to move here, going to be able to go for yet another attack, and the pivot on Marcus's team, that parting shot, unfortunately gets KO'd. Shadowbone here hits that Garchomp, and that should not be the KO because Garchomp hangs on with just a sliver of health, so a pretty bulky Garchomp.
A pretty bulky Garchomp, and I don't think that's something that Marcus was prepared for. He's a very experienced player, and I think he would have probably gone with another parting shot either into the Tapu Bulu or into presumably a Gyarados or something with Intimidate if he had thought that maybe the Persian wouldn't be able to knock it out. But with Lucario, that's certainly an interesting adjustment. Ninetales is weak to Steel-type attacks. Lucario is known to have moves like Bullet Punch, or even just a fighting move might be great here. So could have just been Marcus deciding, I have relied on Persian a lot in the past, but I don't want to be playing such a switch-heavy game. Even though I lose my Alolan Persian right now, if I can get Lucario in at full health and it can start helping me get these knockouts, maybe that's just as good as switching.
Absolutely. Lucario is a Pokemon that we don't see much in the video game championships. Again, we did see it yesterday at the World Championships in Day 1 run by American Alex Underhill. But, Lucario does have access to Vacuum Wave. Here we go. Is it going to be enough to get the KO on Garchomp? It does.
Oh, it barely misses.
Just a little bit, but of course, Ninetales can't really do much, and the Grassy Terrain does help with a possible Earthquake. Garchomp instead goes for a Rock Slide. Lucario does not mind those at all. Hits that Marowak and gets the KO, so now Lucario... Oh, so close, so close. It will get KO'd by the Hail because the Hail goes before the Grassy Terrain, but still, that's so unfortunate that Garchomp hung on because that cost him Marcus's Marowak.
It cost him his Marowak, and it cost him his Lightning Rod. We know that Ryuzaburo has that Tapu Koko in the back, and with Vacuum Wave as Lucario's priority type move, it doesn't seem like someone would run both Vacuum Wave and Bullet Punch into this game. So Tapu Koko can come out, not be threatened at all by the Lucario, and it will change the terrain, I believe, because it will be sent out.
You get 5 more turns of Grassy Terrain, pretty much.
Actually, that's what's going to happen. So won't benefit from the terrain, but still will have the benefit of being fast alongside that Ninetales, who definitely threatens that Tapu Bulu. Marcus is in a really tight spot.
Yep, and time is actually also winding down right now, so Marcus is going to have to try to pick up as many KOs as possible. You want to try to even the score, also do as much damage as possible. Tapu Koko using Dazzling Gleam here, going to connect on both Pokemon. Hits Lucario for a lot of damage, but of course, Lucario going to go ahead and munch away on its berry. So many berries on Marcus's team, it's like he's a harvester. Ninetales using Blizzard, going to connect onto Lucario and Tapu Bulu, but Tapu Bulu hangs on. Is it going to be eating his berry? Going to be close. It does eat on its berry, and now this Tapu Bulu can get the KO on either the Ninetales or even that Tapu Koko. Well, it will be doing a lot of damage regardless. Here's the close combat, hits that Ninetales, but only doing about 60%. Going to drop the defenses, which is unfortunate because now you want to keep as many Pokemon on the field as possible. Tapu Bulu going for that Hornleech, hitting that Ninetales, gets the KO. And now the score is 2 Pokemon each.
It's 2 Pokemon each, but we know Tapu Koko will be faster than that Lucario, and it has Dazzling Gleam. So unfortunately for that Lucario, it's going to be close with the health recovery from the Grassy Terrain, but it's essentially knocked out at this point in time. That Tapu Bulu, though, will still be sticking around. It'll benefit from the Grassy Terrain. I think the big question is how much damage can it do to the Tapu Koko, and what is Ryuzaburo's last Pokemon? It's going to be that Raichu, so we have a turn of Fake Out here, faking out the Tapu Bulu, trying to knock out the Lucario, and then hoping that the combination of Raichu and Tapu Koko can win this game for Ryuzaburo is probably what he's going to be counting on. So Marcus really has to spend a lot of time thinking to figure this out, and it looks like time has gone to 0.
Yep, and this, I believe, it should be either turn 0 or turn 1 coming in, so this is going to be, 3 more turns of play, and this is going to come down to who can preserve their Pokemon the best, and this is always the most intense part. Lucario, of course, has to protect, does not want to get KO'd. Hornleech has to KO the Tapu Koko, but instead Tapu Bulu also protects. So just kind of stalling out 1 turn here.
A very safe play by Marcus.
You have to watch out for that fake out. That's right. All right, here we go. Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko. Now this is going to be close. We got 2 more turns.
It's interesting that both Marcus and Barris on the first turn of the final 3 turns in this game or in their games, I should say, you both used Protect. I think it's a really strong play by these very established players, trying to figure out, well, how is my opponent going to play into these final 3 turns and sort of build your response around that. Raichu revealing the fake out into the Tapu Bulu might not be that much information, but I think the fact that Marcus can count on the Tapu Koko using Dazzling Gleam once again with the additional health from the grassy terrain means that I think Ryuzaburo has to pick a Pokemon he wants to target. And why not have Marcus make that decision for him?
Can't target anything if you're getting redirected with Follow Me. Dazzling Gleam comes out. Lucario does get KO'd, and that is unfortunate. That Follow Me essentially goes to waste. Raichu going for the Psychic here. It is going to hit that Tapu Bulu, boosted by that Life Orb, doing some damage here. Now Tapu Bulu gets the choice of what it wants to hit. Tapu Bulu now boosted by the grassy terrain, hits that Raichu, gets the KO easily. Now Tapu Bulu heals back up. There is going to be 1 turn left, but right now Marcus's Pokemon is damaged. Tapu Koko is at full health, and now it's going to be the last turn.
Oh, this is so close. If Ryuzaburo has Protect here, it's possible that just the act of protecting his Tapu Koko and hoping that his team has more health overall will be the thing to win him this game.
No,
but
no Protect. That's
instead, going for the attack.
Tapu Bulu hangs on. Is the health it recovers going to be enough to bypass that damage done to Tapu Koko? It looks like it should be now. It's going to come down to calculation. So the way tiebreakers work is going to be based on first tiebreaker's Pokemon. Second tiebreaker, it's going to be the amount of the percentage of hit points of your total team. So all 4 Pokemon count even though they're knocked out. And then after that, it comes down to, well, total number of hit points. And then after that, it becomes a real tie. But honestly, if that were to happen, that'd be amazing. Your team would have to be trained exactly the same.
I don't know. I don't think we'll be seeing the tiebreaker progress that far in this game because we know that these trainers are running such different teams, and Marcus's team seems very bulky overall, but that could work against him because if you have more health points total and you're going for the, percentage of health points, that might make your percentage lower, even though it looks like the Tapu Bulu has more health than the Tapu Koko on the screen right now.
Yeah, and we're pretty much in map resolution right now. Both players still extending their hand, still waiting for the call here from the floor to see who exactly wins. It's a lot of math, and we'll update you once we find out the result. And I am so excited because that was so close. Marcus pulled it out just at the end. I think he has more health. I think he has more hit points.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't have a calculator with me behind the desk, so your guess is as good as mine. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, that's what our judges do best. They're here for these situations where games go down to time. You have your 3 turns, and all right, well, we just got to figure this out on paper.
Yeah, and, going into, I guess, the analysis right now, while we wait for the resolution, game 1, Marcus had it packaged to him, but then that freeze just hurt so much because that Tapu Bulu could not thaw out.
Yeah, and we saw a little bit of that even in game 2, just Marcus getting incredibly unfortunate luck throughout both those games. I think it was kind of a miracle that we didn't see Rockslide flinch more overall. Yep. Because it certainly looked like Ryuzaburo was going for it with all those flinches, potential for flinches, all those Rockslides, the fast Snorlax.
Speed swap?
Yeah, speed swap was hype.
Yeah, no, it was super hype. Like I said, you've heard of speed creep. You train your Pokemon just to be 1 point faster, but hey, let's do this, right? I know that a lot of players are opting for faster Snorlaxes, but this one was a bit much. This one was a bit much for me.
This was the extremely fast
Snorlax. Super fast.
Yeah, but
it's training for a marathon pretty much.
No, but marathons aren't about speed, they're about the distance. Which, given how bulky Snorlax is, maybe it does a little bit of both. It does, trains for the 500 meter, and then it trains for the, 26 miles.
All right, well, maybe
they're basically the same.
Maybe it's more about the sprint here. How about
that?
Or, trying to break the world record of marathon running. And again, it all comes down to the math of it. Again, first tiebreaker is number of Pokemon. Second tiebreaker is going to be the percentage of hit points of all your Pokemon combined that are remaining. And then the last one is actual number. And then it becomes a tie.
Yeah, I find it incredible that, we've only had 2 rounds on stream so far today, and both rounds have essentially gone to time.
And it looks like Marcus gave the thumbs up. I'm still waiting for confirmation just to make sure. And it looks like we might be explaining right now to Ryuzaburo about exactly what happened, and I believe it is going to be Marcus. Well, I'm still waiting to stand by.
So we're not going into sudden death, considering that everybody at this table is standing up.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think it hit third tiebreaker.
Yeah.
All right, here it is. I feel like I'm announcing a winner of some sort with an envelope.
Well, I mean, you kind of are.
Yeah, all right. Well, the winner of that past match. I don't think they can even hear the drum roll. Marcus Statter just won that round. And oh boy, that was so exciting.
Leech coming into play, the literal last turn down to the wire. Incredibly well managed. You know, he knew that he needed that recovery, I think, to be able to win that tiebreaker. So just incredible job. Really showing the kind of skills that you need to make it into the top 4 of the World Championships.
And of course, you know, top cutting many international championships as well. You know, he was one of the first people to use Alolan Persian. You know, it's one of those Pokemon that when we see it, we're like, oh, maybe it has some cool things. And then it has like
Shot's good.
Parting Shot, it's good. Fur Coat makes it so much more bulky. I was thinking about using like, I don't know, it also gets like Technician, right? Or something like that.
It does, but I think Fur Coat is sort of the better play because since it can stick around on the field so long, you can keep using Parting Shot.
Yeah.
It's incredible, actually, how easy it is sometimes to, you know, Parting Shot, and the next thing you know, your opponent's at -6 attack or special attack, or both.
Let's hear a little bit more from the man of the hour, Marcus Statter, with a quick interview with him and Anna Prosser. Take it away, Anna.
Thanks so much, guys. I am back here with Marcus. Marcus, the casters were mentioning during Game 2, they thought this was scripted. There was so much going on. How did it feel from your perspective? Tell us some of the highlights and some of the moments that made you go, what?
Well, that was a very, very crazy set, I have to say. First of all, also props to my opponent for playing this pretty well and giving me a very, very hard time. Of course, freezes are part of the game, and the chance to unthaw is like way lower than to actually like stay frozen. So I don't know. Of course, it was heartbreaking that it happened, I don't know, 2 or maybe even 3 times. Either way, I don't really know what to say. What I can say is that I have never felt that unprepared before a World Championships before, but now I somehow managed to beat 2 Japanese players, and I'm undefeated. I don't really know. Major shoutouts here to Daniel Walker, a friend of mine from Australia, who I was talking to last night and who gave me the team and helped me. And I changed like some very small details, but it's like his build. And yeah, props to him, and thank you very much for letting me use that here in the tournament.
You mentioned getting prepared for Worlds and the help that you got beforehand. Could you tell people a little bit about the road to Worlds and how you got here?
Yeah, I got here by finishing first in the EU rankings. Yeah, some of my highlights on the season included playing in all 4 international championships. Also, the 2 of us got to see each other in Indy, for example, where I managed to get in the top 8. So a lot of people have been like hyping me up, saying like, oh yeah, this is like his year. He's gonna like win Worlds and dominate. Yeah, for the longest time, that was also my plan, at least what I was trying to achieve. Since, of course, with Wolf winning last year, I really wanted to try hard this year. However, some other stuff got in the way, and like with university, I had stuff to do. With traveling so much, I had like taken so much time out from my ordinary life into Pokemon that all of a sudden I felt like, okay, like unfortunately for Worlds, I need to like, well, be like clever about it. And so instead of going like all out grinding Pokemon the entire time, I also focused on university. And so it happened that I'm here without a very good idea. But yeah, fortunately enough, again, I had a friend who was willing to help me out. And I mean, of course, now I didn't really like win anything yet. I mean, I'm 2-0, but there's still so many strong players in this tournament, and still a couple of rounds to go. But yeah, at least I didn't like totally bomb this tournament. So I mean, I don't know. I just want to see what happens next.
Yeah, this game taking it all the way down to the very wire where we were waiting on calculations from the judges. Tell us how that feels when you're sitting on stage waiting for that final call.
Yeah, so I was actually pretty sure that thanks to the recovery from Hornleech, I should have more HP. However, in that game, he brought like, I don't even remember, like he didn't bring Snorlax, so he didn't have like the Pokemon with like the highest HP, so his total HP should be a little lower than mine, meaning that every single HP point counts a little more for him. But yeah, in the end, I don't know, the calculation was in my favor. I don't know, like, yeah, he probably would have wanted to like stall out one more turn, because like it actually was like the battle ended at the right turn for me. So I guess so. Then there's also like some sort of luck in there, but I am happy to take that after how I had lost to the first game, and I don't know.
Well, congratulations on pulling out that win. That's 2-0 at the beginning of today. Best of luck as you move into the rest of today.
Yeah, thank you very much. And once again, shout out to Daniel Walker and also to all of my friends who happen to also do super well. So I hope that you get to meet some of them later today.
I hope so too. Thanks so much. Now it's time to head back to the desk. Casters, back to you.
Wise words of wisdom from Marcus right there. You know, he's one of the best players in the world. We forgot to mention that he was #1 in Europe. I totally forgot that because he had so many other accomplishments, right?
I know, right? He's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Like literally, even behind the desk.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I actually saw him mention on Twitter, like he was still team building last night, and I was like, shouldn't you already be ready? But yeah, you know.
It works for him, so clearly don't fight it, right?
Late into the night, I'm pretty sure he was still team building. That was such an exciting set, you know, and so much happened in that set. Feel free at home if you want to join the conversation. You know, just tweet at Pokemon using the hashtag #PlayPokemon. Join the conversation. If you have somebody that you're rooting for, root for them. You know, just
cheer loud and cheer proud.
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's so many good players here. So many great matches still to come, and you know, again, that set was just so crazy because Marcus's team, literally just something that he built yesterday, and he's like piloting it. Obviously, he's comfortable with some parts. You know, he's one of the best Alolan Persian players, if you can say that. It's a thing.
I think that's a thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like in Pokkén tournament, right? You can
Yeah.
have the best Suicune. You can have the best Alolan Persian.
Yeah, exactly. Again, Ryosuburo also played an exceptionally well set. You know, as Marcus said, you know, freezes are a part of the game. And when you're throwing out that many blizzards or that many freeze drives, you know, you're bound to get 1, 2, 3,
4, 5.
So, yeah, 5, 6. Every freeze is possible, but again, like, you know, that's one of the great things about World Championships. You know, I feel like a lot of players bring their best.
Definitely.
Right? I mean, speed swap, who would have seen that coming?
Not me.
It blindsided me.
Completely blindsided.
Yeah.
I think we need to take a little bit of a break to
Oh, yeah.
recover from that match.
We're gonna
What
go
do you
ahead.
think?
We're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and when we return, more action here from Anaheim at the 2017 Pokemon Video Game World Championships.
Being back at the World Championship is just really exciting. It's just a good feeling because I just remember all of what happened last year.
So Corey Connor, he is your new world champion. Congratulations to Corey.
And I just feel like I can do it again.
Amazing sportsmanship. Look at the two embracing.
So last year when I was preparing for Worlds, I figured out that I just can't just test. I have to test against what I thought was really good in the meta. I used other teams that I thought I was going to use so I can know what they do and how they could play against my team. If you're stressing out about it, all you're trying to do is just win, it's not the right attitude to have. You have to play the game and have fun. Because if you lose fun and interest in the game, then you're not going to want to test as much as you do. That's how you win. If I'm stressed out, I'm not going to be able to think right. I just got to be laid back, chill, and just do it in the game.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 2017 Pokemon Video Game World Championships here in Anaheim, California. My name is Evan Latt, and I am so excited to be back here behind the desk after those first 2 matches, alongside my good friend Adam Doricott. What a crazy start of the day.
Well, the first game was absolutely nuts. I had the pleasure of working with Gabby and talking about that game. It went to the timer. We had a fantastic end game set up there by Barris.
Yeah.
Really pulled out the win, and I had the pleasure of sitting with you, actually, backstage and watching that second game, which went to the timer again.
Freaking out, going crazy, watching that.
I got a little excited for Tapu Bulu. I love Tapu Bulu, and seeing it do so well, take those blizzards, filled me with a little bit of warmth in the heart there.
Sounds like Bulu's still in the mix to win Worlds.
It certainly is. Under control of Marcus, you've got to say it's got a pretty solid chance.
Absolutely. Some really incredible matchups already, and we are just going to keep giving you the fire here. So many good matches coming up. Obviously today, our Swiss rounds are full of the best players in the world. All those players who qualified yesterday from day 1, and then all the players who have previously already qualified, been invited. They were sent out here to play in this tournament because they were so good. Everyone else yesterday was playing for the privilege of playing these players.
Yeah, they had to earn that one. But there is something to be said for those day 1 players who really came in to day 2. Obviously, you've got those who qualified by winning their first 5. You've got some who took it all the way to round 7.
Yeah.
But I feel there's also a challenge in playing them that's unique in that they're running hot.
Yeah.
And that's something you don't want to go up against. I think that's why some of these games have been a little bit longer, because both players have been trying to figure out the field and how their opponent's been playing. They also had the chance to change teams up as well.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting when you look at players who are running hot. Some of these players who qualified with 5-2 records may have gone 4-0 and then dropped 2 matches and then won their final match, just barely clawed their way back into it. Some players, like one of the players that we're about to see here, dropped their first match and then went kind of on a hot streak.
You say a hot streak. It's actually been a streak that hasn't involved a single dropped game. So in the best of 3 matches, all of them going in a 2-0 direction. Those are comprehensive wins. And if you get a complete streak of them, that's the 5 wins yesterday were all 2-0s, and the 2 wins this morning, I've been informed.
2-0s?
2-0s.
Well, who could possibly be what player of what caliber could put up a record like that?
We will be checking back in with our world champion from last year, Wolf Glick. But his opponent is certainly no slouch at all. He's got a player who started the season strongly when we rotated into the new format based on the Alola region. A player who went and took 6th place at the London International Championships.
Yeah.
So he'll be playing against Tobias Koshitsky, and I think they've played together before. I think they've maybe worked on some teams together before.
Yeah.
Should be a good matchup.
Also really surprising, this is going to be our 3rd German player on the stream. Germany, of course, one of the strongest regions in the Pokemon video game world, but no world championship to their name. The European World Championships, of course, went to Arash Omadi from Italy, the only European nation to have a Masters World Championships.
Yes, and that's one thing that Germany are kind of missing. They pick up a ton of regionals. They've really put up numbers at some of the bigger tournaments, but they've never taken one of those really big world titles. And I think that's something that the contingent of German players we have on show here today, both Barris, Marcus, they've already won their games on stream.
Yep.
Now the pressure's really on Tobias.
On Tobias.
Yeah, he's got to do well. But going against Wolf, playing on that hot streak, might be the first time he goes to a game 3. I'll be curious to see how this one pans out.
Yeah, at least 1 loss is what you're predicting for Wolf here?
No, I think it could be another 2-0.
Could be another 2-0.
He seemed very confident. I know he's made a couple of adjustments to his team from yesterday, but I feel it wasn't a complete overhaul. It was just a little tweak. Maybe something that he thought wasn't so good in a move. Maybe the way he's trained one of his Pokemon, he retrained it a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's really, really important to make sure you make those adaptations. Learn from that. I was about to say learn from your losses, but learn from your 1 loss. And maybe try and take a little bit away from those victories you only just got the win in. Make the correct adaptations and come into day 2 feeling 100% confident on your team.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic for those day 1 players to be able to change up their teams a little bit. Because, of course, this day 2 is an entirely new tournament. Those records are all reset. We are now just in this new Swiss round. So you can change your team up a little bit. I think it's smart to make some small tweaks to your team, not to completely overhaul it unless you're feeling comfortable with multiple styles of play, which Wolf is a player who probably could do that. But, you know, when you're on a hot streak, you don't want to change things up that much here.
No, I don't think changing and overhauling is the way to go at all. But the things we saw coming out of Wolf's team yesterday were very, very smart, and the use of Togedemaru, I think, is something he's maybe looking to get a little more value out of it. In the games we saw yesterday, I feel that the Togedemaru was not the biggest factor overall in either the victory that we streamed or, of course, the loss in round 1. So that's something, if he's going to bring it, it needs to come against a very certain type of team. And I don't know if the format and the field that he's playing against really open the door for Togedemaru here.
Absolutely, but it's going to be an interesting matchup between both of these players. Of course, we saw Wolf yesterday playing a team that's a little bit more standard than what we come to expect from him after last year, of course, with the Snorlax Arcanine, the Snorlax Mimikyu core with the Arcanine support, as well as the Tapu Fini and the Togedemaru, as you mentioned, in Kartana. A pretty standard team there, using that Snorlax Mimikyu core for a Trick Room mode if necessary, and having that Togedemaru and Tapu Fini and Arcanine offering a lot of support, and having that Kartana sort of as a backup offensive pressure.
I really enjoyed his Mimikyu, actually. I thought there were some really interesting things. Of course, the Ghostium Z was revealed, and I doubt that's one of the things he's changed, because it was such a useful tool. Being able to use your Z move for 2 completely different styles is something that not many Pokemon have the option to do. So he had that Z Destiny Bond to draw the attacks to him and try and take out one of his opponent's Pokemon immediately.
Or go on the offensive with that Never-Ending Nightmare.
It's a pretty good option. I mean, yesterday I saw him hitting Metagross with it, which of course takes a lot of damage, enough to get some nice knockouts. So really opening the door for that Mimikyu play could be interesting, and you have to look at Tobias's team and wonder, does he have enough answer to a hard Trick Room?
Yeah.
Because that's something that a Snorlax and Mimikyu team can set up very, very quickly, and there's certainly teams that, I wouldn't say get run over by the Snorlax, pulverized like a pancake.
Pulverized pancake.
Which is in the field, I've heard. But on that note, if you get it set up, if you've got a naturally fast team, you can really get yourself in a sticky situation right off the bat.
All right, well, it's going to be really interesting to see how Tobias's team matches up. It's a much more, this feels like a standard team looking at this. It's the Snorlax, Garchomp, Tapu Koko, Arcanine, and Celesteela with the option of the Ninetales. So Ninetales is a Pokemon that's really coming into its own here at the World Championships. A lot of players really valuing that Aurora Veil here. Putting that alongside the standard sort of Tapu Koko, Arcanine, Celesteela, making sure that those Pokemon can stick around, basically amplifying the bulk of the Pokemon that Tobias has chosen, which are all very bulky. Not going to see too many one-hit KOs here.
Yeah, and the one thing I'd like to point out about Tobias's team, actually, is it is an identical 6, of course, to the 6 that we saw Barris running earlier in the day. As you mentioned, we've had a very strong German contingent, and they do work together on numerous bases. So I'd be interested to see, of course, if Tobias has taken not only the same Pokemon, but the same kind of setup for them, the same item choices, and that's something that Wolf will have to try and figure out very quickly, because the item choices we saw on the variety of the team earlier, for those of you who've been following along all day, were so important. They really forced a certain playstyle. And looking over at Tobias's team, I feel the same way. Even if the items are a little bit different, there's a certain kind of pattern he has to take in all of these games with the Garchomp. And Wolf really, there's only limited patterns you can use against him. If he leads with something like Mimikyu, you need one of these defined answers against it to stop it setting up. Those answers are so limited because of that fantastic disguise ability.
All right, well, these players are excited to get into match, and so are we. Of course, Wolf Click on the right-hand side of your screen, the defending world champion up against Tobias Koshitsky on your screen right now. Tobias will be looking to most likely upset here Wolf Glick. Obviously, whenever you can pull a win on the defending world champion, that's a pretty good start to your day. You would advance to 4-0 then. 3-0 rather.
Yes, 3-0. And
heading into round 4.
Tobias's wins have actually been 2-1s today. Well, Wolf's have been 2-0s, so a little bit quicker. Wolf having a little more downtime between rounds to relax and catch up on the game.
All right, well, it is going to be the Arcanine and Snorlax leads, and Tapu Fini, and blocked a little bit by that Snorlax is the Togedemaru that Wolf has decided to play. Interesting choice here. The plays with the big Snorlax to using the tiny Pokemon to make sure that maybe Tobias didn't notice Togedemaru out on the field.
Yeah, it's certainly one way to try and hide it. And with the potential threat of a high horsepower from the Snorlax, you probably want to keep it hidden from Snorlax, not by Snorlax. It's got to be tucked away.
By the way, can I just address how great the German name for Snorlax is?
Arcani.
For Snorlax, Relaxo.
Arcanine. Yeah, that's pretty honest, really. Togedemaru, though, doing something to the Snorlax, even though it was blocking it.
Yep, just going for the fake out onto the Snorlax as Arcanine switches out for Celesteela. Wolf's Tapu Fini just going on the offensive with Muddy Water, which connects on both, and gets the accuracy drop onto Celesteela. You wouldn't think that that's such a big deal, but if it can make some of those Leech Seeds miss, then Celesteela is not as tanky as you might expect.
Yeah, it really helps out against that Celesteela if it's not able to set up, which is something that's so important with a team like this. The Celesteela is the bulkiest point on this team, and it very quickly becomes a focus point. The big thing here, I think, for Tobias is actually finding an opportunity to set up his Relaxo or Snorlax for our North American viewers. You know, being able to set that up is a little bit harder when you're wasting a turn getting faked out. In that turn, you're also getting caught by a Muddy Water. It's really not the kind of play you always want to be against. And now a little bit of Intimidate to try and help it out.
Yeah, the Arcanine coming in for Togedemaru just trying to get that Intimidate pressure as Tapu Fini is comfortable firing off these Muddy Waters, hitting both Pokemon again and activating Relaxo's Berry here, healing right back up to basically full health there. No accuracy drops this time, and Celesteela is going to be able to get that Leech Seed off through the accuracy drop, start being able to recover off the health that it's been taking from that Muddy Water, while Snorlax just going straight for that double edge onto the Tapu Fini to deal as much damage as possible. Not as much because of that Intimidate, though.
Yeah, and that's really big. There's not been any setup on the Snorlax on Tobias' side. So the attack was actually a little bit underwhelming, considering he's changed to double edge over the usual high return or frustration, for example. You know, it does have other options, but still, neither of them looking too effective there. The Intimidate really paying off, I think, for Wolf, and a very smart switch. The one thing he might want to look to switch out, of course, though, is Tapu Fini, because Leech Seed. Yeah, it really starts to add up. And Tapu Fini's not doing big damage. He may want to save the Tapu Fini to try and deal with the Arcanine, and also save it so he can set up Misty Terrain later if the Ninetales is in play.
All right, well, it's actually going to be Arcanine switching out for the Kartana here. Kartana will be out on the field against the Snorlax, but not the Celesteela, which is going to switch out for Garchomp. Some really strong, heavy hitters out on the field for Tobias, but Tapu Fini is not afraid of them, is happy to just keep firing off these Muddy Waters, gets an accuracy drop onto the Garchomp as well. And of course, the Snorlax is going to try and recycle its berry. Tobias, of course, we've seen all of his Pokemon are super bulky here. Of course, he's going to want to try and basically store or recover for later.
Yeah, and interesting to see that the Garchomp is now benefiting from that Leech Seed. Leaving that Tapu Fini in could start to be a problem for Wolf. I don't know if he's really in the mood to try and switch it out. Maybe he doesn't feel any of his switches are safe enough with these Pokemon on the field from Tobias. But Tapu Fini's Muddy Water is slowly wearing things down, but the damage just isn't sticking because of the berry, of course, on Snorlax, because of the Leech Seed now helping out that Garchomp. If that damage isn't sticking, is it really damage at all?
If damage was dealt but recovered, was damage ever really dealt?
Something like that. It's a real conundrum, though, for Wolf, and something that you need to be dealing damage to take knockouts. It's pretty much the way to win
Is that
the
how
game.
that happens?
It is. You know, you win the game by knocking out your opponent's other Pokemon, and to do that, you need to deal damage. So you have
We might need
hope.
a trainer tip for that one.
I think we do.
Celesteela is going to be out on the field now against the Tapu Fini and Kartana. Tobias actually just going to rotate all of his Pokemon out of the field. Arcanine now out, loves to be up against the Kartana, get that Intimidate off, but Wolf has just been showing a real tendency to leave that Tapu Fini in and Muddy Water, so could be very risky for the Arcanine to switch in here. Bloom Doom will be coming out from the Kartana, though.
Yeah, Bloom Doom here.
No good targets for that.
Not going to be a premium target left on the field. I think it would be likely looking towards that previous Garchomp to try and get rid of it. And another fantastic German name there.
We should do all of these matches in German.
The brilliant Blutenprankers.
The Bloom Doom will target down the Celesteela, and as you can see, very little damage there. Not the kind of damage you want out of a Z move, but this Muddy Water from Tapu Fini is going to catch the Arcanine. That is what you want to see. Deals a lot of damage right back. Another accuracy drop onto Celesteela on the switch and on the Arcanine. But the berry will activate for Tobias' Arcanine, and the Leech Seed will recover a little bit more damage for that Celesteela.
One question I'd like to ask about Wolf's Tapu Fini, of course, is why it keeps Muddy Watering. We've now reached a point in the game where every single turn it's Muddy Watered, and that could
been out since turn 1, and every turn it's Muddy Watered.
Yeah, it could be giving away a bit of its item there, maybe showing its hand, and the damage it's been doing is pretty significant there. The amount of damage it did to Arcanine in particular, even though the attack was very, very effective, is a little bit more than you'd usually expect from a Tapu Fini. It's often been a bulkier Pokemon, so looking like a choice specs over there on Wolf's Tapu Fini. That's something that Tobias is going to have to respect a little later in the game, but most importantly in that turn, the Bloom Doom getting really negligible damage down.
Very little value.
Something that it needs to be thinking about, particularly in games 2, or potentially if he goes to his first game 3 of the day.
All right, well, Wolf is going to switch out Tapu Fini here for his own Arcanine to get the Intimidates right back down onto the opposing Arcanine and resetting the Leech Seed. So Wolf will no longer be healing his opponent's Celesteela. Snorlax, though, will switch in for Tobias's Arcanine, misses out on the Intimidate there, so that Snorlax is at full strength. But we are going to have the Kartana set up a substitute to make sure that it can take anything from any of Tobias's Pokemon, and a substitute in front of a Celesteela and a Snorlax is usually a pretty good place to be if you're a Kartana.
Yeah, this is a really good setup turn from Wolf. Getting the substitute in play means he can't get caught by the Leech Seed. If something goes for it with say a potential Flamethrower coming off the Celesteela, then it's not going to get knocked out, and it may be able to start dealing damage back with something like the Sacred Sword, if that's what he's decided to bring with it. A very common move, of course, on the Kartana with just 2 attacking slots. Keeping yourself safe from potential Arcanine coming back in is so important as well. And I feel that Wolf's just opened up a lot of board position for him. He's very comfortable to throw out attacks with Kartana and fish for a Beast Boost somewhere.
Absolutely, and he will need a Beast Boost here with the Intimidate coming out onto the Arcanine.
And the Arcanine only?
Only because of the substitute, which the Delegator has blocked the Intimidate, soaked that one up. Well, we are going to see the attack onto Arcanine while the Flare Blitz comes out from Wolf's Arcanine. Too many Arcanines out on the field. I can't follow all of the Arcani.
You've got to keep track of those Flamant Blitzes, Evan. But a Double Edge doing pretty good damage, and I think that's why we see it go for it over the return. It's just doing way more than you'd usually get out of
And no Intimidate this time.
Not only that, as well as it's not had any setup. We've seen a number of people, most of the trainers at the World Championships running that Belly Drum variety. We haven't seen a single setup move from Tobias this time, and that's certainly interesting to see how that plays into his playstyle.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that it is a very bulky Pokemon with that Recycle, so obviously you expect some sort of setup. The decision is really, is it Curse or is it Belly Drum with these Snorlax?
Yeah, I think with the way it's been recycling, you know, it may be one of those slower ones with Curse, but Belly Drum isn't been ruled out. You do end up having to spend a lot of time setting it up, though.
All right, well, both Arcanine are going to Protect on this turn here. While it looks like the Sacred Sword will hit into the Protect this time around from Kartana, and Relaxo will also hit into a Protect, so no damage dealt here because both Arcanine were the target and both decided to protect themselves.
Very smart play from both trainers, knowing what they needed to keep safe. And a very interesting board position here where both Arcanine are in potential range to get knocked out by something. On the other side of the field, we saw the amount of damage that Wolf's Arcanine took from the Double Edge from Snorlax. And then in the same vein, we know that Kartana can deal a whole lot of damage. That's its single role in most teams. Deal damage, take knockouts.
Get those Beast Boosts.
All of these switch-ins are going to be very, very risky, especially if Kartana's looking to set up something with the substitute in play.
Just looking for damage there. Another Sacred Sword into the Garchomp. Takes a little bit of damage back from the Rough Skin through the substitute. Another Flare Blitz from Arcanine will be trying to deal more damage to that previous Arcanine slot. Is now Garchomp. Deals a little bit of damage to the Garchomp. Takes damage in recoil and from the Rough Skin. And Snorlax is just being allowed to sit on the field so far. Hasn't been too threatening as of yet. Arcanine recovering up a little bit more with its berry. And we are going to see the Double Edge coming out from Snorlax onto the Arcanine. Gets it right back down to where it was before the berry activated. And Snorlax, with the recoil, also going to activate its own berry. So basically getting that recover that it stored a few turns earlier while dishing out damage.
Yeah, and if that Arcanine actually hadn't gone for the Garchomp and picked up some residual damage from Rough Skin, I think it would have got knocked out by the Double Edge. So very smart play from Wolf to basically activate his own berry. In this case, it is going to be, you know, the Pinch Berries. It's called the Margot Berry in this instance. And that really helps him, just keeping that Arcanine around, giving him the option to switch it out and bring it back in for another Intimidate, which against the two Pokemon on the field would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you really want to protect that Arcanine when your opponent is using all of these physical attackers like Garchomp, like Snorlax. You know, even if Celesteela is running something like a Heavy Slam, it's not irrelevant. Wolf is going to protect his own Arcanine this turn with a Protect here. No damage dealt from the Earthquake, coming out from the Garchomp onto Arcanine. Just going to deal damage to the Snorlax and the substitute of Kartana. But is going to be enough to break it at least.
Yeah, that's really big, getting rid of that substitute. But it does allow Kartana a time to set up and get back another attack.
Yep, a Leaf Blade into the Garchomp and also activating the Beast Boost here for Kartana. So we'll be able to get a, another stage of attack boosted. Did not take an Intimidate earlier because of the substitute. Tobias will be able to reset that with Arcanine in the back, but Snorlax, instead of going on the offensive here, is going to just take this turn to recover up, recycle the berry, and be back right at full health.
Yeah, well, Relaxo knew it was going to be taking damage from the Earthquake. So Tobias playing around that very, very wisely and getting that recycle in play. The big concern, I think, here for Tobias is that he is in a bit of a pickle with regards to this Kartana. It has set up the Beast Boost, which is now meaning this Intimidate from Arcanine actually isn't getting any value out of it,
back
really.
to neutral.
It's bringing it back to neutral, and it's still in range to get knocked out, of course, by this Sacred Sword coming out. That means that it will pick up another Beast Boost, and while he's going through all of these motions, Snorlax is sticking around, but you have to wonder if Snorlax can actually start dealing a little more damage. The time it spends recycling, keeping itself around, attacking into protects, means that Kartana has this opportunity to set up the Beast Boost and then cleanly knock it out to end the game.
Absolutely, and it'll be even easier with a Helping Hand. Wolf's Arcanine showing the power of friendship. Helping Hand Sacred Sword into the Arcanine. Kartana easily able to pick up that KO, activate its Beast Boost again, and no more Intimidate on Tobias' side means this one will stick. It looks like we are going to have another double edge coming out from Snorlax, finally picking up the KO onto Arcanine, which means Celesteela feels a little bit safer here, but still getting the Beast Boost on Kartana, you never want to see that little Origami Steel Pokemon get rolling.
No, that's a real big problem. Now he doesn't have the Intimidate to try and reset it. You could see so much damage coming out from this Kartana. We do know, of course, that Tobias is down to his last 2 Pokemon, so he has the option right now with Togedemaru to try and get another knockout. With the attacks we've seen from this Snorlax, we've seen Double Edge. We know it likely carries high horsepower. If it had something strange on it to try and do a Kartana, I think it would have shown it off by now.
Absolutely.
With that in mind, you have to think that the combination of Togedemaru alongside Kartana could just keep getting Beast Boost in play. Not going to try it this turn, though.
Nope, just going for the super effective Sacred Sword onto Snorlax. Not enough damage here, but the Zing Zap from Togedemaru is enough damage to pick up the KO onto Celesteela. Both players extending the hand for the handshake. Seems like Tobias knows that this game is over. Does show the high horsepower onto Togedemaru. Is going to get the information that Togedemaru is holding a Focus Sash here. Important when going into Game 2, but Wolf Glick, really well played set there, able to just maneuver himself around the board here, making sure that his Pokemon were always in an advantageous position. The damage from Tapu Fini getting some of those accuracy drops, which didn't really come into play, but may have factored into Tobias' decision-making. Really felt like Wolf was always just a little bit ahead of Tobias this game.
No, it really didn't. Even though he started it off slow, once the ball got rolling, I felt he just got himself in a much better position. That substitute on Kartana, very, very helpful because he avoided the first Intimidate from the Arcanine. That forced Tobias to switch it out, and even though he didn't capitalize on it that turn, the fact that Garchomp was in play meant he was able to Leaf Blade it for a knockout.
Absolutely.
Then when Arcanine came back in, the Beast Boost nullified, and it was a lot of pressure on the Kartana to keep the ball rolling. We did see the Snorlax, as you mentioned, it spent a lot of time setting up, not a lot of time attacking.
It didn't even really spend any time setting up. It spent a lot of time just getting its berry back.
Keeping itself around,
We didn't see any curses. We didn't see any belly drums. We just saw double edge, high horsepower, and recycle there. So Tobias either deciding not to bring a setup Snorlax, which would be incredibly surprising, or just deciding that he didn't have time, or if he is using a non-belly drum Snorlax, that his setup was too slow for this game.
It really was interesting to see. But if you have a belly drum Snorlax, I feel most players are inclined to use that early. The way we've seen it played over the course of the tournament is belly drum is essential to the numbers. They only get the knockouts after the belly drum. So I feel with that in mind, the fact he was actually attacking, also the fact he's using double edge over in return, which would get it anyway. You don't want to be doing 100% damage and then taking recoil off it. That just seems a little bit too much.
A little risky.
A little risk and tackle is what you need in that case. So very interesting to see what that fourth move is. I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe Curse. And you really think Curse could have been a lot more helpful there, because Curse would have helped against the Kartana, against the Arcanine, even against the Togedemaru. Just limiting that damage, forcing the only real damage of the 4 we saw at least to come from Tapu Fini.
Yeah, but Tapu Fini still got out a lot of damage. We were wondering about it because Celesteela and all the other Pokemon were recovering it off pretty well, but even just being able to pop those berries, make sure that Tobias loses some recovery, a lot of damage was dealt by that Tapu Fini. I think if we went back and looked at the stats, Tapu Fini may have dealt the most damage that game.
It dealt the most damage, and like you say, activate the most berries, forced recycles. That's something that Wolf really bears in mind, and now he's seen how Tobias plays with the recycle. It's going to be interesting, but a little change up from Wolf in the beginning of Game 2.
Yeah, Game 2, Wolf has decided to go with the Mimikyu and Snorlax combination here, while Tobias is going with his own Snorlax and the Arcanine. So Wolf showing at least the option of going into his Trick Room mode this time around. The Intimidate from Arcanine is suboptimal when you're running a Pokemon like Snorlax, but the Belly Drum variant is pretty easily able to just wipe those away.
Yeah, that'll be really easy to set up if he wants. And we know that some Mimikyu also have options. I don't think this one does if it's the same one he was running yesterday. But Intimidate, really something that Tobias is relying on this game based on the fact he's already taken Arcanine out of the equation.
Absolutely. Tobias is clearly predicting that this is going to be a very slow game here, sending in the Celesteela for the Arcanine. But we are going to have a taunt coming out from the Mimikyu on Wolf's side. Blocks the curse there from the Snorlax.
Yeah, so finally seeing that fourth move. He didn't actually reveal it in Game 1, but Wolf knew something was there.
Yeah.
Getting that taunt down with his Mimikyu, very, very smart indeed.
I think that was a really interesting first turn from Wolf there, showing the Mimikyu and the Snorlax, basically baiting Tobias's Snorlax to go for the curse to counter a Trick Room,
No, that's
and then just
so
stopping
smart.
it with the taunt.
Yeah, and now if he feels the need to set up Trick Room, if Wolf actually has Curse of his own, then that would be fantastic. If not, he could play the Belly Drum, then look for that kind of speed tie and just do more damage, simply put. If he sets up with a Belly Drum, he'll be in a much better position to deal damage because every single turn he deals more, even without the Double Edge.
All right, well, the Double Edge coming out from the Snorlax on Tobias' side will connect with Wolf's Snorlax, and we are going to have a Belly Drum coming out from Wolf's Snorlax, so Wolf showing that he is going with the much more offensive version of the Snorlax here. Cuts its HP in half, maxes out its attack, and then recovers it all right back with that Figgy Berry. And it is going to be the Trick Room coming out from Wolf's Mimikyu.
Another name that's just better in German, the Bizarro Realm.
Bizarro Realm.
I enjoy that a lot more. Interesting to see, though, Wolf feeling pretty confident there that he's going to be able to get that setup that he needs, and that his Snorlax is actually going to be moving before it could be a time. Many of them invest in no speed and actually run a nature that reduces their speed even more. So that'll be really interesting to see how that one kind of pans out over the next couple of turns. Celesteela not getting any time to set up there, also a big loss, because that's something that may have helped Tobias get through this Trick Room. After the Belly Drum, Snorlax is going to threaten both Pokemon on Tobias' side of the field, and even though it's not the biggest threat to Celesteela, Mimikyu's pretty good at dealing with that.
Yep, well, Wolf is showing off his frustration here. One-hit KO on the enemy Snorlax, really showing off the power of the Belly Drum right away, while Celesteela has to go for that Heavy Slam to pop the disguise of the Mimikyu. Mimikyu, the saddest animation in the game, just can't hold its head up any longer, but will be getting a taunt for its efforts, so Celesteela not going to be able to stall it out with the Leech Seed, just has to keep going on the offensive.
Yeah, not going to be able to Leech Seed or Protect as well, and that's a big one that taunt blocks that a lot of people seem to forget about.
So stalling Trick Room.
With the Snorlax in play, of course, it could just go for that slot. Deal a lot of damage. We've seen it do way over 50% as well. And then there's no safe switch. Yes, there's an Intimidate, but I just don't think that's going to help against Belly Drum boosts.
Yeah, that Arcanine's going to need to come back, come back in about 5 more times for
and then
it to
you get
be
it
relevant.
Back to neutral.
Yeah.
And then you can Belly Drum again.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the way to do it. But at least it's something, you know, it's something that can actually protect this turn. And with Celesteela not able to protect, you can just see Wolf double targeting it. Really doesn't look too afraid of the Arcanine, or he may be in a position to try and set up a little bit with that Snorlax by adding a recycle to it, getting another berry into play.
Yeah, well, Wolf is just going to continue to play a little bit defensively. That is how Wolf likes to play here, switching out Mimikyu for Arcanine, positioning himself very well on the board against Tobias's Arcanine and Tobias's Celesteela. The frustration will hit into the Protect, so no damage coming out from Wolf's side this time, but Celesteela forced into this Heavy Slam with the Intimidate, also really not doing much damage at all. Wolf setting himself up in a very good position to maximize this Trick Room with the Belly Drum Snorlax.
Yeah, that's what he really needed. Is seeing the Celesteela stay in means that the Arcanine and Snorlax combination are the premium pairing to try and deal with it. and really force that nothing can come in safely in that at all. A failed double protect.
Yeah, unfortunate for Tobias, not able to get the double protect here. The frustration is another one-hit KO. Wolf just showing off the power of that belly drum Snorlax here. The flamethrower will connect with the Snorlax, deal a little bit of damage, but not as much as this Flare Blitz from Arcanine is going to do on Celesteela. Tobias, I believe I saw him shake hands with Wolf. I believe he knows that this one is over, and Wolf is looking like he is he is on an incredible hot streak right now.
He really, really is, and with that Arcanine going down, as soon as he lost that, he knew that the next turn, of course, his Celesteela can't protect. The Snorlax can just pick it up there, and he really doesn't feel like he has the damage to try and deal with this. So even though Garchomp's in play and would be able to maybe try and swing things, I think with the Trick Room up, that was so essential for Wolf.
Yeah.
It's 4 Pokemon to 2, and he just keeps this streak running. I believe that's a collection of 5 yesterday, another 6, so 10 there, another 6 from this morning. That's 16 games undefeated in this
16
tournament.
and 0.
That's how Wolf wants to be defending his World Championship.
Absolutely. This is his house right now.
Yeah, and people have been coming
You can't
into it.
disrespect the champ.
You really, really can't. I mean, round 1 of yesterday didn't go his way. But since then, I think that fueled him to really stake his claim as why he's the world champion. He seems pretty confident in his team and the tweaks he's made. So this is the kind of result you want as you come into the end of day 2. I mean, already got those 3 wins under his belt. Only a couple more to go.
Absolutely. And as both players are chatting away happily, the game has resolved, and Wolf Click, 2-0 victory. Another 2-0 to his collection. Is now 3-0, moving on into Swiss round 4, which, you know, we saw him on the first match of the entire tournament, had some unlucky breaks with those rock slides, and it seems like something just like those rock slides were it for him.
They upset
this
him.
is not going to be how I go out. I am going to I'm going to defend my title, and I'm going to defend my title without dropping any games.
And that's going to be interesting to see how far he can take that run. The tournament only gets harder from here, and in the bracket stage, it gets even harder.
Yeah.
But you want to keep that confidence going, and Wolf looking to defend that title, looking to get a back-to-back, which only one other person has actually done, his arch-rival in Ray. You know, very interesting to see how far that will go.
Ray did defeat Wolf Click in order to get his 3rd World Championships back in 2012.
He also defeated him on the way
bracket.
in 2011. I believe it was the top 8 match there. So trying to match those accomplishments is going to be a bit of an ask, I think. You know, 2 more to go, but this is how you pursue the 2nd.
Like maybe after this one, Ray has to get back into the field if Wolf is knocking on his door.
We'll get Wolf out. Like maybe we'll get Wolf to win, then we'll swap him and Ray around. We'll do some shenanigans.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see how that goes.
I thought that was a really interesting set there. The first game was really strategic, a lot of positioning being played there, really classic Wolf play. You know, you have a lot of these turns where you're just positioning your board presence, and then on one turn, about 10, 12 turns deep, Wolf turns it on and starts getting those knockouts because you spend those turns previously weakening Pokemon on the switch in, just making sure that you have the best Pokemon out against all of your opponents, and you can get that slow chip damage over time, just setting up for some one-hit KOs from like 40% health instead of 100% health.
It's a little bit easier when they're at 40% health, but Game 2 was such a stark contrast to that.
Yeah.
He spent 1 turn kind of securing things with a taunt on the Snorlax from Tobias' side, making sure it couldn't curse. So when he set the Trick Room up Game 2, he was able to freely just let that Snorlax go.
Yeah.
He moved before Tobias' Snorlax, which is something I thought was interesting. And basically there was able to just keep on rolling, keep on attacking, and just get himself into a really advantageous position. As soon as that Snorlax went down, the Trick Room was so valuable for him, and there was no way to play around it. A lot of people looked at Mimikyu Snorlax. It's not been touched for a while. Seems to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, it seems to be doing pretty well here in Anaheim, and that's what makes Wolf so scary as a player, that he can play both of those styles, and he has a team that allows him to play multiple styles of game. So if you feel like you have a good matchup against the slow, drawn-out style of play that Wolf played in Game 1, well, can you also beat the Trick Room Sweeper? The just hard Trick Room, Belly Drum Snorlax runs over your team?
It's really hard to play against both modes and build teams that deal with it. I think some of the top teams we're seeing today are those teams with multiple options. So those that have the fast mode, the kind of slower mode, some of those in-the-middle turbo fast modes. You know, some of those interesting selections are going to be what defines the top teams today, not only the top players, because top players need a top-tier team.
Absolutely. Well, let's hear from one of our top players about his top team and his amazing tournament so far. Let's kick it down to the floor where Anna is standing by with defending world champion Wolf Glick.
Hi guys, I am here with Wolf. Wolf, you're kind of a familiar face back here. Congratulations on coming back again because you won.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about that match. Specifically, let's talk about your Snorlax versus your opponent's Snorlax. What were the differences? What made you come out on top?
So my Snorlax was very bulky and used the move Belly Drum, which makes it a really quick offensive threat, whereas my opponent Toby, his Snorlax was used Curse, which is kind of slower, makes it more bulky, but also instead of focusing on just setting up, which is what I like to do with my Snorlax, he was focusing on dishing out damage. So game 1 was really, really close. I feel like I just barely squeaked by, and then I just like kind of brought the right Pokemon for game 2, ended up working out.
Yeah, I was just talking to Gabby in passing. She was like, he kind of made every correct decision and every correct play. Do you feel that way about this match?
Honestly, I feel like I just got lucky with the Pokemon I brought game 2. Toby is not only like a really good player, but he's also he's a good friend of mine. Like we're staying in the same hotel room, so like I have mixed emotions about going up against him. But yeah, I mean, maybe it looked that way, but I really think the game was really close, and I just kind of made one good prediction in team preview of game 2, and it made it look more one-sided than it should have been.
You have quite a pedigree coming here. You're defending a title. You have competed in these large arenas before. We talked about how often you're on stage. How are you keeping your mental stamina high, especially in the point that you're undefeated right now, right?
Yeah, I actually have won the last 16 games in all my sets, like without dropping any. I only dropped 2 games, which is the first set I played, which is on stream. So I'm feeling really good in that regard. But honestly, I'm not thinking too much. I'm not thinking about how I would love to do well. Like here, I would love to put in a good showing at the tournament after the year I won. I'm kind of just focusing on one game at a time, and like instead of trying to think about like where I eventually want to get, which is hopefully top cut, I'm just kind of taking it like one game at a time and saying, okay, how do I win this game? How do I win the next game? And yeah, I don't know if it's the team or my mentality or what, but whatever I'm doing so far, I feel pretty good with.
And you've been sticking to pretty much the same team, right? No changes?
Yeah, there's like a couple very small things on the surface that I've changed between yesterday and today, but I don't like it influences like the way I play it in subtle ways, so I don't think people really recognize it. But yeah, for the most part, it's very similar to what I brought yesterday.
Awesome. And is there anyone on the horizon that you know you're going to play, or that you're hoping you're going to play? Any players you want to give a shout out to, or that you're hoping to hit?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, there's just like a lot of amazing players here. I'm actually kind of worried about playing more of Team Germany, because in the last round, like a lot of the Germans were like doing really, really well, and they're just great players and also good friends of mine. So like it's like on the one hand, I love playing against high level players, and I love like being able to push myself, but on the other hand, like nobody wants to play against their friends, because then one of you has to lose. So yeah, hoping not to play Team Germany, and I'm good with pretty much anybody else.
Awesome. Well, it's been so much fun watching you play. Best of luck as you continue forward.
Thank you.
All right. That is all we have today from Wolf Glick, at least for now, but probably some more later. And we'll head back to the desk. Thank you, casters.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, I would definitely expect to hear a little bit more from Wolf later on in the tournament. 16-0 in your last 16 matches is not a terrible record.
Not at all, but the thing I found interesting there was his approach to the play.
Yeah.
The way he was saying that it's just one game at a time, and I think some players may get a little intimidated as they look at day 2. They've got to win all these rounds.
Yeah.
Taking that one step at a time approach seems to be working out, and I think that's benefiting him in the way it's just another 2-0. Another game and another 2-0. So it's really, really about that mental fortitude at this point, but he's in pole position to just keep on going.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just that's the mentality of someone who's been playing for a long time. He's been playing since 2011. Once you've been playing that long at the highest level, that first year, you won a regional champion, won a championship, won a nationals championship, made it to top 8 at Worlds. This is a player who hasn't really had to deal with. He knows nothing else but high pressure matches, right? He started playing and he was already performing at a Worlds level. There was no growth needed there. He was just already there, so there was nothing intimidating about playing on these world stages.
No, and he's been up in the top cut numerous times at Worlds, at Nationals, and all of that. So very much a steady player when it comes to that stress of the high-level matches. And I think if he makes Top Cut, that could benefit him a little bit. If he plays against a newer player who's had a breakout year, it is always a bit of a challenge to say, hey, you've got to play the world champion from last year. Hope that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a newer player and you made it to World's Top Cut, you know, don't you want to play the defending world champion? Just to be like,
you do get
once you win, you're like, I got this.
You
it's
get to
all
stake
over.
your claim in that
Just
tournament.
Coast.
I don't know about coasting against the world champion. I think maybe eking out a victory is the way to do it, but a victory is a victory.
Yeah. You take the W's wherever you can find them.
And less of the L's.
Yeah. You could take at least 2 for now.
Well, Wolf doesn't even want to take them in his match record, though. So, you know, WLW is not enough for him.
Yeah.
It's got to be just WW. Yeah. Pretty simple strategy, really. As we said before, knock out your opponent's Pokemon, win your games, win enough games to advance to Top Cut, and problem solved.
All right, well, that was Swiss Round 3 here in Anaheim. Of course, all of our players are playing to an X-2 record. So Wolf putting himself in a very good position, being 3-0. Tobias not quite out of it with a 2-1 record. Moving into Round 4, we'll have those players who are undefeated as well. And then once we start getting to Round 5, we'll be playing into Top Cut.
Yes.
Players who are going to make it into the Top Cut bracket.
Yeah, the win and in matches, basically. Those players who a victory will assure them the Top Cut. Those matches are going to be really, really high pressure. I'm already looking forward to them, but the matches we've had so far have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Tobias is actually the first one, even though he played that set very, very well. You know, particularly Game 1, I think he opened up a lot of doors for himself in Game 1. It went a lot better than Game 2. The first member of Team Germany to actually take the loss.
Take a loss on stream.
Let the team down there.
Unfortunate, that one. But we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will have more from the Pokemon Video Game World Championships here in Anaheim, California. So stay tuned.
Battles in the Pokemon video games are exciting tests of strategy, but if you're a newer player, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the choices. When it comes to training and battling with your Pokemon, where do you begin? Here's a simple guide to help break it all down. Pokemon, as well as the moves they attack with, are split into different types, such as grass, fire, and water. Each of these types has strengths and weaknesses against each other. So a grass-type Pokemon is weak against fire-type moves, but resistant to water-type moves. A more dramatic example would be that electric-type moves are strong against flying-type Pokemon, but won't hit ground-type Pokemon at all. Some Pokemon possess 2 types instead of 1. Rowlet is both a grass and flying-type Pokemon, with the combined weaknesses and resistances of those 2 types. So what makes a Pokemon unique, even from others of its own species? It's a combination of the Pokemon's moves, its stats, the item it's holding, and its ability. Pokemon can learn many different moves, but may only know up to 4 at the same time. All moves are split into 3 categories: physical moves, special moves, and status moves, represented by the symbol next to each move. A Pokemon's stats can vary wildly from one to another and are a big factor in each Pokemon's unique battle strategy. A Pokemon has 6 stat categories. If a Pokemon's HP reaches 0, it will faint and be unable to battle for the rest of the match. A Pokemon's attack determines how much damage it deals when using physical moves like Wild Charge or Icicle Crash. Meanwhile, its defense determines how much damage it will take from an opponent's physical moves. Special attack and special defense function similar to attack and defense, but are considered for special moves like Thunderbolt or Ice Beam. A Pokemon's speed stat determines the order of battle. When 2 Pokemon face off, the one with the higher speed will move first that round. Each Pokemon can hold a single item given to them by the player. Some items are consumed by the Pokemon for a one-time effect, and other items have a long-term passive effect. Each Pokemon possesses an ability which comes into effect automatically when specific conditions are met. Rowlet's ability, Overgrow, boosts the power of its Grass-type attacks when its HP is low. Certain abilities show a message on screen when they activate. Finally, a brand new game mechanic for Pokemon Sun and Moon players are Z-moves. These are super-powered versions of standard moves that can only be used once per battle. There's a lot to consider when deciding which Pokemon to battle with, especially with trainers being allowed 6 Pokemon on a team. Focus on the basics to start. Find your favorite Pokemon and train it to have moves, an item, and an ability that play to its strengths. Then, find some teammates that help cover your first Pokemon's weaknesses. You'll have a solid, battle-ready team before you know it. If you want more information on how to train or battle with your Pokemon, you can find resources on Pokemon.com. Want to watch the pros battle it out at our premier tournaments? Watch on Pokemon.com/live.